I didn't see last time. I hope that training was very productive and that your summer is going great so far. So we'll proceed with the agenda. Going on to, first off, I'll start with the Indigenous Solidarity Statement. So we'd like to acknowledge that Concordia University is on the traditional territory of the Ganyangehaga, a place which has long served as a site of meeting and exchange amongst nations. The Concordia Student Union recognizes and respects the Ganyangehaga as the traditional custodians of the lands and waters on which we meet today. So for point number 2, the roll call sheet is going around. So for those who are new to council, just make sure that you sign in so that we have a record of your attendance and it doesn't accidentally count in your absences. Moving on from there, I'll move straight into approval of the agenda. So if you have any additions, modifications, subtraction to the agenda, it's now. For those of you who send me emails asking me to add things to the agenda after Friday, I cannot do that until right now. So if you sent me an agenda point saying, please add this to the agenda, please just reiterate it right now. Yes, Julia?
I would like to add Senate and Silk on the agenda, please.
To substantive?
Yes.
Okay. Not to appointments?
Appointments would be, oh actually, yeah.
Okay. Silk is already there, it's Fund Committee.
Thank you.
And Senate is yes, Veronica?
I'd like to pull the policy committee minutes and the appointments committee minutes.
Great. Yes, Ahmed?
I would like to add the Bring the Sun Home campaign.
Okay. I'll put that before the committee minutes because usually when we pull from consent, they just end up at the bottom. So that's going to be C. Anyone else? Yes, Layla?
I'd like to add point street closure.
Great. Yes, Ahmed?
Again, I want to add the annual campaign.
The pardon?
The annual campaign
Okay.
to the agenda.
Great. Is there anything else? Yes, Veronica?
I'd like to add to presentations, I guess the burrito build building.
Is there anything else to be added, modified, subtracted from the agenda? Okay. If not, let me just make sure the numbers are correct. G. And with that, we can move to a motion to approve the agenda and all items under consent. Julia.
I move to approve the agenda and all items under consent.
Thank you very much. Do we have a second? Awatif. All right. And all those in favor of approving the agenda, please raise your placards. The agenda as amended, sorry. 8, 9. All those opposed? And any abstentions? 0. Thank you very much. So if you'll just give me 30 seconds, I'm going to PDF this and upload it to the Facebook group so that everyone knows where we are on the agenda. Before we move on. So with that, we can move to Burritoville Building, and Veronica, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I'm just going to post a link to our council page. Okay, so this is about student space. Currently, we have a lack of student space at our university. There's the 7th floor lounge areas that we use specifically for clubs and other associations or groups of students. We also rent out the modular room. However, that's not enough for student space, especially since we have over 100 clubs with only 20 clubs that have office spaces. So there is a lack of kind of rooms where these students could work and like cash out their yearly plans to engage other students in activities and events. So essentially, the post that I linked is a building that is on sale that we've been looking into. It's the Burrito building on the Bishop Street. It has 4 stories. We could renovate it and use it for students. Today we have with us club executives and our club director that will kind of say their statement of support for this. So if I could give the floor to them, that would be great.
Okay, absolutely. The floor is yours as you wish to present in whatever order. Yep, go ahead.
I'm Davis Hapner. I'm the CSU Clubs Director currently. So I just have a brief statement. So as the CSU Clubs Director, my primary concern is helping new and existing student groups navigate the university bureaucracy so they can best fulfill their mandates. I also help to vet new club applications and generally serve as the first point of contact for day-to-day club matters. I feel it's my job to advocate for the club's portfolio and amplify the feedback that I receive. Over the last year of interacting with clubs, I've gained a strong sense of their priorities and their concerns. In particular, the lack of student space available to clubs is an issue that is raised to me on a near daily basis. Our student groups desire easier access to space for meetings, workshops, and social events that relate to their wide variety of goals. For some groups, it's almost impossible to cater to their members and a greater student body without frequent, reliable access to space. Having added 25 new groups over the last academic year, the CSU Club's portfolio now includes approximately 110 cultural, sport, social, religious, and special interest groups. In contrast, the CSU controls approximately 20 small office spaces spread over both campuses, many of which are shared between multiple clubs and/or in substandard states of repair. The CSU's conference room and 7th floor lounges offer space solutions in some cases, but competing bookings and foot traffic cause issues, and these areas don't work in every case. While I also help clubs with hospitality, IITS, and CSU bookings in lieu of assigning office spaces, deadlines and budget restrictions often prohibit clubs from accessing space and equipment in a way that would help them best meet their goals and their mandates. My opinion is that opportunities to create more dedicated space for student groups, especially in ideal locations proximate to the Sir George Williams campus, should be seized. I've been told many times that clubs form the backbone of the CSU, and as the portfolio continues to grow and diversify, I think it's essential to provide adequate space so the clubs feel supported and remain motivated to enhance student life at Concordia. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else like to?
Yes.
Floor is yours.
I am here representing the Concordia Debate Society. We're new to the CSU. This is going to be our first year with them. Previously, we were with exclusively the PSSA. I'm going to be talking about why this student space would benefit us. First of all, one of the things we do are meetings. Every club has meetings, so this is a universal application. We believe it would be very nice to have a reliable place to get meetings done. Typically, we have trouble finding available classrooms or empty space to do our meetings, especially during the day when everybody has class and a lot of rooms are occupied. Second off, we do practices almost twice a week. It would be nice to have a space where we could consistently and reliably use to hold our practices. Third, we would like office space. We haven't gotten it yet. Of course, we're a new club, but it would be nice and exciting for us to get it as soon as possible. We believe having a space dedicated exclusively to clubs would get us that space faster. It would give us a place to schedule our trips and to discuss, to perform our administrative roles. And essentially, I'm just going to be repeating what was just said by David. This proposal would mean we would be spending a lot less time fulfilling our this proposal would mean we would be spending a lot more time fulfilling our mandate and less time finding a place to do it.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
It's just a short message, just to say. I'm here representing Artopia Concordia. It's a new club also at the CSU, and I just have to agree with what Davis and Chris just said. We basically, every time we had to do a meeting with like the executives, we didn't have any space, and it kept on changing. We just kept going, to our homes or like our small offices, but it was a bit confusing and everything. But eventually, yeah, that's what we need. We could use more offices. That's what I just said. Anyway, that's all.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
So my name is Omar. I'm from the Data Intelligence Society. So we're new/old. We started last September, but we've worked a lot with the CSU. I can speak for what DISC does. I don't have a speech prepared or anything, but the nature of some clubs, what we do, we really need access to, it's the constant access that we need. It's very difficult to get, if we need a space to get a meeting room, if we want to meet with a sponsor, or what we do is sometimes we prepare students for competitions and stuff, so we need to meet up with them, get some industry professionals, train them for big data competitions, data science stuff. I don't want to get too technical, but if we want to get a room, it takes us forever just to get a room, and if we want something that's not under the CSU's jurisdiction, we have to go through a lot of process. So we really need a room, and if there's really no possibility to get a room, at least that if the CSU can provide us with some quicker access for last-minute bookings. Because it's number one, really, the space that we need. And other than that, that's just it. Some incidents that I want to share. We've had some we had some potential sponsors that we wanted to speak to. They told us, no, we can't meet you because we can't give you access to our building due to confidentiality reasons and stuff like this. So it happened twice with us so far. So we don't want this to happen again, that we're put in a situation where we can't get something because we don't have space or direct access.
Thank you very much.
So I'm in the same association, Data Intelligence Society, and I just wanted to add it also helps with students to engage with us. Instead of going through Facebook or our website, they can have a space and we can have actual office hours where they can come and basically connect with us on a more personal basis, and it also helps with the professional view of the association. So thank you CSU for considering us and considering getting more office spaces.
Yes, Veronica?
I'd like to thank everyone who showed up today, and I guess this is kind of like the introduction of what we're going to talk about next. And I'd like to move to go into closed session.
Okay, we have a second. Julia? Second? Okay. All those in favor of moving to closed session, please raise your placards. 10. All those opposed? And any abstentions? 1. Thank you very much. 2. Thank you. So we will enter closed session.
Point of information.
Yep.
Does it have to be closed session? Why do I have to fill this out again?
The roll call sheet?
Oh, there's multiple? Okay. Okay. Great. That
Just
makes
one.
sense. Thank you.
No problem. All right, so at this point we'll enter closed session. So all those who aren't executive chair, judicial board, minute keeper, or council, please leave the room and we'll call you back when we're moving back into open session. Thank you very much for your patience. Now that we're in open session, just a reminder of council's responsibilities to the board of confidentiality. So anytime we do move into closed session, all of the contents are to remain in closed session. So that also means like no recording, no talking to your friends about what's going on in closed session, things like that. It's also stipulated in the CSU standing regulations that we don't record closed session as well. The meeting minutes are erased with the exception of the contents of the motion. So what appears in open session is just what was moved, but not what was discussed. So that remains in closed session, so not to be discussed in the hallways, et cetera, et cetera. All right, with that we can move on to the speakers list, which goes Veronica, Julia, and then Layla, and then Sule. Veronica? Okay, Julia?
I moved to ratify the minutes of closed session.
Thank you very much. Do we have a second? Rowan? All those in favor of ratifying the minutes of close, please raise your placards. 6, 7, 8. All those opposed? And any abstentions? 1, 2, 3. Perfect. So that carries. And we'll move back to the speakers list of Layla, Sule, and then Rory. Layla, the floor is yours.
I'd like to move the suspended articles.
Okay, we have a second?
Sorry, where is
Yeah, the reason is because we need to add budget to the agenda. I'll just clarify that right now.
Second.
Seconded by Julia. All those in favor of suspending Robert's rules, please raise your placards. 11. All those opposed, and all those abstaining. 1. Thank you very much. Layla?
I'd like to amend the agenda to add BIPOC committee to appointments, which would become point 6I. I have 2 other points, I'm gonna do them all at once. Yep, to add budget presentation to presentation and guest speakers, which would be directly followed, it would be 5B. And to add student survey to new business substantive, which would be 8H.
Okay. So we just need a motion to approve the amendments to the agenda. Julia,
I move to approve the amendments to the agenda.
you would second. Patrick, all those in favor of approving the amendments to the agenda, please raise your placards. 7, all those opposed, and any abstentions. 3, perfect. Right, just a reminder, the good thing about these little silly things that happen is that we all learn silly little things that can be done at council. Right, so we just need a motion to reinstate Sule.
Actually, before we do that, can I also move to add signing officers as a discussion point?
Can it be done in a question period in business arising? It's business arising? Okay, if it's just an announcement or something that, yep.
I'd actually rather have it as 5C. Well, if we could, ignore that it's presentation and guest speakers, just have it before appointments.
Is it relevant to any of the appointment points?
Well, I may have to leave and I want to be here.
Okay, I'll put it as 5C under reservation. And it's called signing officers. Okay. So at this point we need a motion to approve the amended agenda. Again, please raise your placards. Yeah, it's just the addition of signing officers. 11, all those opposed? And any abstentions? Perfect. Okay, so I just need a motion to reinstate Robert's rules. Julia?
I move to reinstate Robert's rules.
Okay, all those, second. Dylan? All those in favor of reinstating, please raise your placards. 8, all those opposed, and any abstentions? 1, 2, thank you very much. So at this point, we're still on the speakers list, which goes Sule and then Rory. The floor is yours.
Oh, no, never mind, it was same things. No, we're good.
Okay, Rory?
I'd like to propose something to council just in terms of making sure things are done properly. Some of the things that were discussed in closed session had very specific outcomes or very specific inferences, and I think it would be prudent for us to make a motion in open session so that any of those decisions are, say, able to be legally followed by the executive, and there's no ambiguity as to what the council's position is on them. If people can maybe read between the lines as to what information was there, maybe Caitlin could guide me as to whether I should be a little bit more specific.
You just can't discuss the amounts.
Yeah.
The amounts?
I can do it.
Anything that was discussed, amounts of money in the
That's
closed
it?
session? That's it. I
Okay, great.
conferred with Omar.
So to be very specific then, the purchase offer says as one of the conditions, barring the approval of council on X date, it has very specific wording in there. Our position was to postpone that decision or to think about it a little bit more. So I think because we didn't come out straight and say no, and we didn't come out straight and say yes, we need to make some sort of motion now in open session so that there's no ambiguity as to whether we can revoke that offer or not. Because the offer was conditional upon council agreeing or approving to it. And because we did it in closed session, it's did we agree, did we approve?
Thank you. Julia?
Can I have the minute taker read all the motions that were passed in closed session, please?
Okay.
Or Caitlin, whichever's easier.
I delete mine. So Rory should have hers.
If there was no one in front of the camera. Yeah, I think about the money. Let's read them too.
There's the one that was together, that was divided. Okay. So
Julia's motion, which was to table, if you have, at one point you had read it.
Yeah. So I'll go to the first one.
Give me a second, because I could quickly make a motion.
By table. Should be about, okay, so, the motion that was made, was to, have the executive look into Burritoville and have two other options to present them at a visioning and move that the motion be done in the September 2nd meeting, and then that was amended. All of the amendments, by the way, show up in open session. And then that was amended to not have the September meeting, but to change it to the possibility of a special council meeting. And then that motion was divided so that only the part about having three options was separate from the rest of the motion. So council voted on having a visioning, having the executives come back with a report, possibly at a special council, and then the aspect of the looking at three buildings was turned into a recommendation for council in the future to come back with more than one option when presenting things of this nature. And then the motion that was made by Dylan, let me just go pull up its contents, which will appear in open session as well, was to refer the aspects/criteria of the visioning process to the Clubs and Space Committee to provide a recommendation on the necessary process to understand the needs and wants of students, as well as the selection process of future buildings. Please correct me if I missed anything. Corey?
I do actually have a motion that would make it very clear and specific.
Mm-hmm.
Can I make that?
Yep, there's no speakers list.
Okay. I move to exercise council's right to publicly clarify our approval and position on the tendered purchase offer for the Burritoville building. In accordance with clause 1.1.1 of that offer, the council does not approve of the execution of this offer.
All right. Just make sure that that is uploaded for the purposes of minute keeping so that we have the exact wording, and do we have a second? What's it? Rory, the floor is yours.
Did you want me to type it and send it?
Oh, yes, please.
Okay.
Sorry, I thought you had it.
Just again to clarify, it's to be very specific in that this offer would bind us to something. The executive has signed this offer on council's behalf, and as per this clause of the offer, the council has the right to not approve of it. So I just want to be very clear legally so that we don't have anything happen afterwards, that the council has not approved of this offer as it stands right now.
All right, thank you. Kemi and then Omar.
Yeah, it's more like a question. Could it be written that it is for the moment that we do not accept this, this offer, and it will be reconsidered?
Is that a formal amendment?
Yes.
Okay. Could you just formulate a wording?
So I think at the end, can you repeat it again, please?
The council does not approve of the execution of this offer.
At the moment.
At the moment. Okay. Is there any opposition to adding at this moment to the end of the motion? Opposition?
I think the only the only relevant point to oppose would be that that could legally be interpreted as within the due diligence time frame of this same offer, and that's why I don't like the specific wording of saying the council does not approve of this offer. It's a very short, clear statement. That doesn't mean to say that we don't like this idea or that we're not looking into it. It's just very specifically legally protects us from this offer itself.
Okay, before we move forward though, do we have a second to the motion? Julia? To the amendment, sorry, to add at this present moment or at this moment?
Sure, why not?
Okay, Kemi?
It's more like a question.
Yeah.
So in that case, but what I'm afraid of is that if we refuse this offer right now, is that they will take in as it was cancelled. Like this offer is cancelled, and we do not have any further conversation on it. As if we were adding at the moment, it will not extend, but like it will just make room for like further discussion.
Thank you. Omar?
So just two things for Rory. You mentioned 1.1.1, which is the offer.
5.1.1.
Okay, sorry, that's what I misunderstood, so that's fine. On the other hand, just the understanding between ourselves and the vendor is that if it's not approved today, then we don't have an offer on the table. So they're open to sell it. So if we want to maybe send them another offer that we're still looking into it, and we'll have by a certain date maybe an update for them, we can make a motion for that, but until then we don't have anything for ourselves. So.
Okay, so at the moment, the amendment on the table is to add at this moment to the end of the motion. Okay, so if there is nothing further, we can vote on just adding at this moment to the end of the motion, the amendment. So all those in favor, please raise your placards. 8, 9, all those opposed? 1, 2, 3, and any abstentions? 1. All right, so the amendment carries and it will be added at the end of the motion. So we're back on the main speakers list, which is Omar.
No, I rescind, thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else who'd like to speak before we move to a vote? Okay, so all those in favor of the motion as read by Rory, please raise your placards. 8, all those opposed? 0, and any abstentions? 1, 2, 3, 4. Perfect, so the motion carries, and we have no more speakers list. So at this point, yes, Julia?
I will call for the orders of the day.
Okay, I will accept the orders of the day. So at this point, we're on 5B, which is budget in the amended agenda. There's just a couple points that got changed a little bit. And Stule, the floor is yours.
Okay, so unfortunately, we don't have the proper wiring for the projector, but you should have all received the budget in the documents that were sent. So we could go about this several ways. I could either go line by line while you follow me on your laptop. If you don't have a laptop, you can definitely come check out on my screen or somebody else's screen. Any questions, comments, concerns, bring them up as we go, I guess. And
Point of personal privilege.
Okay.
Can you post it on the Facebook group, please?
Sure.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'm just gonna upload it. Give me 1 second.
Thanks.
Okay, it should be up. So let me know when everybody's ready and I'll start going at it line by line.
Sorry, I also just posted the contents of Rory's motion as well. If anyone
Cool.
wants to review it.
Everyone good?
Yeah, thank you.
Yep. Cool. All right. So basically, the way that this budget, just to kind of contextualize everybody to how it was made, met with a bunch of different groups, met with all the execs to see just kind of what they wanted to do throughout the year, to be able to properly allocate funds to the different lines. Met with the general manager, the accountant, and a bunch of other people to have them explain, and the old finance coordinator as well, to have them explain how the lines were allocated in the past, what they were projecting to end the lines at, and that's the forecast column that you'll see on the budget. Budget 16-17 is what was budgeted for that year, and the highlighted column in blue is the opening budget that I'll be explaining today. The fourth column says variance forecast. That's the difference between the opening budget and the projected forecast for the closing budget for the last year. Any notes on the side are just extra notes, and I'll be explaining the variances as well. Good?
Sorry, Stule, do you want me to take a speaker's list or do you want to answer questions as you go?
I guess, yeah, every time I'll just look up and go, good, we'll do speakers list if
Okay.
that's, yeah, okay. Any questions? Yes? No? Cool. All right. So, the CSU's opening budget is not its full budget, right? We're not going to be looking over the Silk Fund, over like all the other different like assets and stuff like that. We're only looking at operations and services. That's how it's been done in previous years. That's the only part that needs to be approved by council. Yes? Cool. Operations. All right, so here we have revenues. So row 8 is student fees. That's going to go up. That's because of the student fee levy increase. Other revenues, handbook advertising, that's pretty self-explanatory. Work study program is the university gives us money every time a student works for like one of the services, right? So you'll see this in like the different service lines below. Orientation contributions, that's just general sponsorship in terms of extra food or like merchandise, stuff like that, not necessarily money. Orientation sales, we're planning for a free orientation, but we have to budget for sales just in case. Health plan administrative revenue, that's the administrative fee that comes for the health plan. Rental income, other rental income, interest income from saving accounts, that's all pretty self-explanatory. For line 20, it's a new line as per one of the past year's projects, the DISH project, which passed at council. So the expenses come out of operations and the revenue comes from Silk, from the Silk Fund. This line here in revenue is basically just saying we're transferring the money from the Silk Fund to the operating budget, and then later you'll see DISH project expense, and that's the expense for the actual line. It's just for transparency purposes. And yeah, any questions so far? No. Cool. Oh, no, we're good. All right, miscellaneous, that's just for unaccounted revenue. Sometimes, I don't know, if someone wants to pay us a check that we weren't expecting, that'll go into that. So overall, we are projected at a bit less revenue than the total revenue for the forecast. Total revenues from operations increases, but that's mostly from the fee levy increase. Next, expenses. Executive salaries, that's based off the COLA, which is the, had it before, the living cost of living arrangement adjustment, whatever it's called. So that went up by a bit. Executive benefits, that's health, dental, all that. You can't account for executive's bonus, so that's that. The next few lines, general coordinator, external mobilizations, finance, etc., that are 625, that's each executive's discretionary budget line for meetings, like buying food, stuff like that. Hardware, executive hardware allocation, 41, that's per standing regs. Executives retreat, 1,500, seems pretty fair. They went over it last year, but we're planning under budget this year. So total for the execs part is an increase, and that's mostly from the exec salaries due to the COLA. Next section, is everybody good so far? Yes, no questions? Cool. Council and electoral expenses. Most of this stuff is from standing regs, other expenses, food expenses, pretty self-explanatory, council retreat, council training, judicial board, elections referendum, electoral supplies, electoral expenses. All this stuff is pretty self-explanatory. The electoral expenses went up from the budget. Last year they were budgeted at, the elections and referendums total went up in the budget. That's because they ended up spending a lot more than what they thought, so we kept it at the forecast. Electoral expenses, again, they spent way more than they thought, so I just decided to increase it just in case. So we have an increase in council and electoral expenses, and that's mostly from the electoral expenses. Administration and salaries. Administration salaries, that's an increase due to the collective agreement. Administration benefits, same thing. GM expenses, that's Robert's discretionary line. Employee health benefits, very self-explanatory. CSST, CNT, reception salaries, reception benefits, all pretty self-explanatory stuff, so that's that. Does anybody have any questions so far? Am I going too fast? Yeah, what's up?
I have a question. I'm not sure what you mean the council expense, where you said about retreat and food and all that. Like, where does those budget come from, and what is being used here?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Like, I think in your council,
food expenses and
yeah,
other expenses?
Yeah.
So that's, for example, the pizza and the stuff that are, it's council meeting, and other expenses are for, you know, in case placards, or if we want to like print out like standing regulations, stuff like that, that goes under those lines. Is that all right? Yep, what's up?
Rowan had a question first,
Oh.
right? And then
I was just gonna ask that you go a bit slower, just because it's like kind of being rushed to the point where you're, like for someone who hasn't seen the budget a lot before, it's kind of like you're trying to jump around.
Oh, sorry, yeah, I'll slow down.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it's also because like it costs money to book rooms
Yep.
at Concordia, so like for meeting rooms and stuff, that's why it might be expensive.
Yep.
And Rory had a question? No. Okay.
Okay, so I'll slow down, sorry about that. If at any point I'm going too fast, just like tell me to slow down, and I tend to speak pretty fast, sorry. So we're done with salaries and benefits. We're at row 72. Everybody there? Okay. Admin and office expenses. Telephone, office expenses, photocopier service, photocopier supplies. Those are all stuff that's on the 7th floor. Telephone expenses, execs also have up to $100 per month for in case they like overage on data and stuff like that. Basically just if the stuff they need to do their job. Office expenses, that's general office housekeeping. Photocopier service, photocopier supplies, that's pretty self-explanatory. Postage, pretty self-explanatory. Training, that's for the general training, like the execs have to take training for that's it, consent and harm reduction and all that, as well as other training that the employees have to take and stuff like that. Local travel, again, self-explanatory. It went up because we're adding, what's it called? It's the tree planting costs, right? Carbon offsetting, sorry. I'm bad at words. So in total, the admin expenses went up by a little bit. So now we're down to IT and MIS. This is fun because we're going to have a new website. All right, so license and support, self-explanatory, renewing licenses and stuff. Website external labor, that's going way up because we're revamping the CSU website to make it more legible. Yep, is there a question?
No, I want to add something when it's done.
Oh, okay. Yeah, website external labor, that's going way up because we're revamping the CSU website to make it more user-friendly and so people can find stuff better. We're also moving platforms, and Omar can go into way more detail for that because he's been dealing with it and has been supplying quotes. Is there a question?
Kenny has a question.
Yeah, I just want to make sure, like, this is the IT migration line, is it?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Well, there's an IT migration down there. I won't explain that, but this is specifically for the website.
Okay.
Okay. IT external labor, that went down because we don't need as much. IT training, self-explanatory. Computer operations, again, pretty self-explanatory, just general stuff. IT equipment, we're planning on buying, I think, a couple yeah, just, you know, general, 2 computers, I think, for a couple of our staff because they've been using laptops and like it would be more beneficial for them to actually have a solid computer there. Website expenses, this is for the website's maintenance, that'll be throughout the year. The new line, IT migration, basically we're moving everything as per, so, okay, back it up. Last year it was decided that we would move the whole platform to G Suite. However, our IT director, Jonathan, thinks it's more beneficial to move to Office 365. That move will cost about $7,000. I believe it was ratified at council that we would move to G Suite, so we should have that discussion. The IT director thinks it's better to do Office 365. Hello?
Sorry, I'm Tavia. I'm on council.
Oh.
I came late.
Hi. You're just in time for the fun part.
Welcome. You can sit anywhere around the table. Yes, Julie?
Do you have the discussion now or after?
We can have the discussion now or after, it's up to you guys.
Okay.
Julia?
I have worked with both, and the reason why we picked G Suite last year was because it made more sense for all the documents that are transferred, because we always end up having to use our personal emails at CSU to have access to documents because people just end up using Google anyway. So I know it's been more difficult to transfer to G Suite, but we thought it would be a lot more effective in the long run, especially since it's an investment. So I think it should stay that way.
To G Suite?
Yeah.
Okay.
Rowan had a question as well.
I was just gonna recommend we talk about that after, but alright, it's already
All right. Well, we can have a more elaborate discussion afterwards if you guys want, or we can. It's up to you.
Whatever.
Afterwards? Afterwards. All right. Internet expenses. Nothing's been spent last year, so we're taking it out. So the total is going up by 26,000 and a bit, and that's mostly for the website and the migration. Financial and legal fees, accounting fees. So we're with Deloitte for our audit, and sometimes like for special projects and stuff like that, we might need a bit of extra help. Audit fees, we currently, I think the 2016-2017 year had a unqualified opinion. Same thing this year, and we have a contract with Deloitte, so that's that. What's that? No, previous years it was qualified because of the whole Kuzakorp thing, and then 2016-2017 was the first year that was an unqualified opinion, and then this year too. Yep, as per, yep. Legal fees. That's pretty straightforward. Legal fees, collective bargaining. That was for the collective agreement, but since it's been done, we don't need to spend on it this year. Other professional services or any other financial and legal services that we may need to incur. So overall, it's going down by about 27,000, and that's mostly because of the collective agreement. Yeah.
Which line are you in?
Oh, we're at row 103. Sorry. Should I slow down more?
Maybe every like 7 or every like 10 lines, just say which one you're at so people.
Okay. Sorry. Fun. All right, so now we're at 106. Bank service charges. So this is under the section that's banking, insurance, and interest. These are all pretty straightforward. It's bank service charges, payroll service fees, interest charges, insurance. Gain or loss on translation isn't really something we can account for. Overall, it stays relatively the same. We're at 111. We're on line 111. So there's nothing new there. Student engagement activities. This is where the fun begins. So we're at line 116. Food and clothing bank is something that we're trying to bring back. It's basically just a reserve for if a student, something messed up happens, like flooding in their apartment, and they're like out of a house for like a day or two and they like apply for our food and clothing bank that we pay for like their hotel and like a couple of food expenses, stuff like that. Line 117, promotion and communications. We're gonna be increasing that because we want to do just a lot more with our communications. In previous years, the promotion of just the CSU's initiatives hasn't been done to its full extent, so we're going to be revamping that and putting more money into it to be able to reach more students Reggie's activity expense, that's basically, so Reggie's pays the CSU rent because it's CSU owned space. But the activity expense is a way for them to kind of get that money back because it was an investment from the CSU initially, and that's going to keep going. There's no contract for that, so that can definitely be looked into if you guys wish. BIPOC initiatives at line 119, that's just general stuff for the BIPOC committee. Last year it was severely underutilized, but I believe this year we're probably going to hit the 15,000 mark. Are there any questions so far?
Rowan, Dylan, and Peter.
Yeah.
With the Reggie's activity expense, doesn't this get redistributed back to them in a later line item?
It gets redistributed back to them way up in. So the expense is actually the redistribution to Reggie's. The revenue is like their income to us. Does that make sense?
We're not gaining back our initial investment in them.
No, it's a zero. Yeah, it just balances out. But we can definitely look back into that, and I think that's one of the things that we'll be looking into as finance committee. Anyway, is what it is. New line. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
I just have a question though, because I saw you said about the peak, the bypass.
Yeah.
That be a new thing that we just started, but I mean you already have the initiative, because I thought that hadn't started yet. So I don't know why we already have expenses already set.
I'm sorry, can you repeat?
Because I thought that was a new stuff.
Yeah, so the BIPOC initiatives were new last year. But they didn't do that much with them, or they didn't spend as much as they could have. I'm just, when I was creating the budget, I just decided to keep it at the same amount they budgeted for last year, just to give them more leeway in case they wanted to spend more, you know.
So is that just a estimate goal? Like an estimate thing? Okay.
So all the budgeted items are just what we expect to spend for the next year, right? Ideally, we would spend up to that amount, and just that's it. Sometimes you go over budget, sometimes you're under budget. It's just the way that life works. You can never have a completely accurate forecast of what you're going to be doing. But yeah, so we're expecting to spend 15,000. Obviously, if more is spent, we'll have to look over it with council. If less is spent, I mean, it is what it is, right?
Yeah, basically I was there last year when we approved this in the middle of the year, and it was 15,000 flat forever, and then the money from last year is supposed to carry over, because it's only for BIPOC initiatives. So I don't know if you were aware of that.
I was not made aware of that. I thought it was just a 15,000 line.
Yeah, 15,000 forever,
Yeah,
every year, and then the money that wasn't used the year before.
So it just accumulates?
Yeah, because it's only for BIPOC initiatives.
Okay.
So
then,
instead of it going back into the CSU bank account, it has to be next to it.
Okay. You have questions from Khadija, Rowan, and Dylan as well.
BIPOC is the Black and Indigenous Persons of Color. Am I saying that right? That's a committee / group that does events and initiatives that target those groups. Yep. Anybody wants to add on to it?
You have Rowan on
Yep.
question?
Just to add some details to that, quoting from Standing Reg 177.1, in the event that the BIPOC committee is not formed in any given year due to the absence of any BIPOC executive and representatives, the amount budgeted the former year for the BIPOC initiative's budget line shall be set aside in the current year, remain untouched, and added to the following year's BIPOC initiative's budget line. So it doesn't seem to explicitly say that if it's not all spent, but it's kind of implied in there.
Okay, can I just direct reply to that? Basically, so the way that budgets work, it's not like every single line has X amount of money in it. It's just we have a bank account, and when we account for it, we put the expenses in the lines that say whatever the expense was, and at the end of the month or whatever, when we do our reconciliation, we're like, okay, we're at this much that we actually spent out of this much that we expected to spend, right? So it doesn't really make sense to have that standing regulation. It makes sense to have one that says the BIPOC initiative's budget line will always be $15,000 up until they decide to decrease or increase it. But it doesn't make sense to say that the money that wasn't spent gets reallocated to the budget line, because that just makes the budget line increase every year. But if the money isn't spent, let's say, okay, so right now only $2,000 are forecasted to be at the closing budget out of 15,000. That means there's 13,000 that hasn't been spent. That means that the 13,000 that hasn't been spent has to be added to the 15,000 that is budgeted now, making it 28,000. Now, if we only have the capacity to do $15,000 worth of events or initiatives, then that's another 13K that's added on to next year, and it just it doesn't make sense to do it like that, I think.
Sule responded, but you're on the speakers list, so I have Dylan, Julia, and then I saw placard here, I think, but it might have been up and down. Okay, so Dylan and then Julia.
My curiosity is when would be appropriate time to motion to change amounts in line items? Because as the board, we do have the right to not only add to specific items, we can remove them and add additional initiatives that we would think that our students, because at the end of the day, we are responsible to our students at large and what they would like. And I have spoken with some of the students in my faculty, and they would like to have certain line items increased.
You can, I would say after the budget is presented, just to give Sule a chance to present everything. You could technically do it before, but just for politeness, we'll let you finish. But yeah, that answers your question.
Just if I could just,
Yeah, sure.
it would be much easier for me to keep track of where like the things need to like change if we do it as we go. That's all right. So like if I bring up a line item and people want to change it, I think we should like discuss that now as opposed to the end where like everything's done. I don't know, just.
The way it works is council approves the budget at the end, so you present the budget and then there's a motion to ratify. Anything interim, I guess, would be considered amendments if we're following the correct structure. So if anyone has amendments, they could bring them up as we go and then vote on them individually, and at the end, the motion would be to ratify the budget and all amendments made as we went along. Is everyone okay with that? Perfect. Julia?
Yeah, so basically, I think this is gonna sound really cheesy, but we should honor like the memory of what Sophia did, like her legacy with the BIPOC committee. And I think the fact that we wanted to keep that certain amount of money in the budget is important because it's not just for Concordia. It's whoever these people who sit on this committee decide to give money to, they can see like, I don't know, some foundation or whatever that does something that they want to do but they don't have time to do it. They can work with them and have a collaborative event, and some things are more expensive. And I think like because this standing reg exists, because that's why the BIPOC committee was created, to give people a voice, to make sure they have a committee that represents them, that's like pari pour, you know, like they're in it and they do it for themselves. We should keep it. And maybe that's not how you do your budget, but like we can add it in K in notes that they have all this money to spend and that it's always going to roll over forever because that's just how it is.
Thank you.
So.
There's no speakers list. So.
Okay. So in that case, should I increase the line to 28,000?
Yeah.
Is everybody?
It has to be a formal amendment if we're going to do this properly.
Okay.
I think maybe what we should do is just have a separate bank account for BIPOC, and just like any other fee levy, it just accumulates what's not being used. It doesn't, but I'm just saying, like, if we created our own bank account, we transfer 15,000, they continue using it every year, we would transfer it regardless of how much they've used.
This is somewhat of an internal discussion that you wouldn't have to bring to council until it was decided and done. In terms of bank accounts and things like that, council doesn't need to vote on it, just throwing that out there. There was a couple questions though, Julia, and then I think Veronica and Sally.
Just because this, like for the sake of clarity, because this is a really important committee, I think we should vote on it now. It's very symbolic and it shows that we're united as a council, and that's really great. So I move to open a bank account for a BIPOC committee where their 15,000 and whatever's left over from the year before will be accumulated forever.
Okay, do we have a second? I want to. Julia, your motivation?
I have already said what I have to say.
Okay. Is there any discussion to be had on the amendment to the budget? Or on the motion at hand? Rowan?
I'm just wondering if this makes sense or if there should be more of a setup beforehand where it's actually dealt with by an executive or committee before being motioned on at council, or do people feel comfortable with the ability to get this done?
I have, did you want someone to respond to that
Doesn't need a
directly?
direct response.
Okay, so I have Khadija, Layla, and then Dylan on the speakers list. Khadija?
I like what Julia said, but I think we should think about it before taking such decision. Like just saying, okay, we didn't use 30,000, we're gonna add it. It's gonna keep piling up, and perhaps CSU don't have the means to keep doing that every year, you know. So
yeah,
I'm kind of against it. I feel like we should discuss about it further before like voting something like that.
Thank you. Layla?
I have a slight concern just over in terms of the spirit of the motion, I am like very much for it, but in the standing regs, it's the point begins with in the event that the BIPOC committee is not formed in any given year, and that's the condition on which the rest of that point relies on. So from my understanding, it's more so that money allocated to this committee doesn't then go to something else in that year just because there was a very unrepresentative council and executive. I don't, like my understanding is not that each year the money rolls over, given that there's like this first sentence in the event the BIPOC committee is not formed in any given year. the amount budgeted the former year shall be set aside for the current year, remain untouched, and added to the following year's BIPOC initiative, so that when the committee is reformed, they have twice the budget they had the year before.
Thank you. Just to throw that out there, committees are the specialists of everything. So a lot of regulations like this tend to go to committee to be discussed and then brought back to council with a response, or else we end up throwing ideas around and we end up here until 3 in the morning. So really don't refer to things just because you don't want to talk to them, but talk about them, but just remember that committees are really where the people who specialize in that aspect are there to look at these things, to discuss them. Dylan?
I was actually going to motion to refer this motion to policy committee to look at the clause itself and make any adjustments according to what was passed when the original motion was taken. So what would that entail exactly? They would look back through the minutes of prior meetings when this motion was passed, see the intent behind it, and then come back with an updated policy that would clearly explain the intent behind the original, which would remove the ambiguities of whether in fact the $15,000 would roll over every single year or not.
Okay, I'm going to count that as your motivation to refer to committee. Do we have a second? Julia? So there's a motion on the table to refer the issue to the policy committee. Is there any discussion to be had? Okay, so with that, all those in favor of referring to policy, please raise your placards. 12, 11. All those opposed? And all those abstaining? 1. Thank you very much. Okay, so we're back on the original speakers list of budget things in general. I had Peter and then Julia, but Peter's not here. Julia?
Which line are we at again, Susan?
We're at BIPOC still at 119.
Okay, thank you.
Good.
Okay, Julia?
All right, let's keep going. All right, so there's a new line at 120 called collaboration. After meeting with Layla and discussing it, we figured that we want to show more support to the faculty associations and like try to host some collaborative events with them, or yeah, basically. So there's $4,000 there. That's $1,000 per faculty association, and yeah, it's basically for collaboration. There's a question, I think.
Roy.
Yeah.
Sorry, you may have actually said this and I missed it, but I just wanted to confirm, who's the approval authority committee-wise for this budget line?
For collaboration?
Yeah.
It falls under the purview of the student life.
Yes. I would like actually to motion to increase this line item to $10,000 each. The reason why is because $1,000.
Sorry, can we just get a second first? Yeah. Do we have a second to increase, Sally? What line was it, please specify?
Line 120 called collaboration.
Perfect. Your motivation, Dylan?
Motivation behind it is our whole job here is to represent the students, and I know the students in the business department as well as many of the other departments don't have a lot of opportunities to collaborate and have these aspects to collaborate across faculties. It's something that they really want, and since the CSU's main responsibility is to represent all the students and provide the initiatives for all the students, this would be a perfect area for them to continually improve on. And I think that $4,000 just wouldn't be enough to start off that. I think it's a fund that can definitely be growing in further years. So increasing it to $10,000 would give them a sufficient amount to host multiple collaborations with the faculty associations. And once again, this would be a budgeted $10,000, so it's not a required $10,000 to spend. At the end of the year, let's say the opportunities do not fall in place and they only spend $4,000. That is the case, and that can happen. It would just allow them to spend up to $10,000 in this specific line item.
Right, so I have Rowan, Rory, and then Julia.
I have information.
Yep.
I want to be certain, of what the line collaboration is.
So the collaboration line was a line that Layla and I had decided upon because we wanted to collaborate with other student groups, so other student association, FASA, CASA, ECA, and ASFA.
But in what precisely those collaboration is about? Is it like
Okay, this is not so much a point of information anymore, more like a question. Point of information is really I cannot keep going until I have an answer to this, so that's why you're allowed to interrupt. But yeah, I'll put you on the speakers list. Rowan?
Yeah, I'm gonna motivate against this. Sorry, I kind of got thrown off for a second there. Several reasons. First of all, I think
or $10,000 total?
Total, which would be $2,500 per faculty. Why? Right. So student life is obviously a very important part of this. That's why we already have, including the 2 orientation budget lines and the student life initiatives, slightly over $200,000 of our operations budget allocated towards it, which is a lot of money. Second point, and to me more importantly, the CSU fills a specific role here, and it's not as an umbrella organization. What I mean by that is our role is not to provide funding to the faculty associations. The faculty associations have their own fee levies, they have their own budgets, they get their own money through that. The CSU provides a lot of things, and that includes overall student life events, such as orientation, that are being put on, and these involve students from all faculties. My problem with this is that it simply funnels money off into the different faculty associations, and while that's something that is done on a case-by-case basis, a lot of the time, like sustainability committee will approve some funding for this project in correlation with whatever faculty association. I think budgeting money aside, especially like the more money, obviously the less I'm comfortable with it. I think budgeting that aside solely to give to faculty associations puts us in a role that the CSU shouldn't be filling, hasn't historically filled, and that the faculty associations have their own fee levy to fill.
Did you want to respond?
Yeah, so the idea behind this isn't to funnel money into the faculty associations. It's literally to collaborate with them to like kind of break down those barriers. Because like, I don't know if like I might be the only one thinking like this in this room, but I feel like there's a bit of a schism between the CSU and the faculty associations, even though we all represent Concordia students in general, right? So the idea when I was talking with Layla, and we were thinking of doing like collaborations where, for example, the CSU pitches in $1,000 and becomes a CSU plus ECA event, right? As opposed to just like sponsoring them $1,000 free dollars. So it's really like more of a symbolic thing that like, hey, we're here to back you guys. Like, we're all Concordia students, let's help each other out, as opposed to just like throwing money at people. Yeah, if that's the case, then why isn't it just in student life initiatives, which can be spent at the discretion of the student life coordinator and her committee to do exactly that as they see fit? So as I said, it's symbolic, so we want it in the budget so that people know that we're having these collaborations.
Thank you. Rory?
It's probably been asked just a little bit before, but I'm really curious as to exactly what a good example would be of this type of event. And I'm just wondering if you guys, I think it's the spirit of it is great, but is there actual plans behind it? Do you have a plan behind this dollar figure on here right now that says, we want to do 2 conferences that are multidisciplinary and cover different subjects, in the university? Or we want to do 2 networking events for all different types of students and bring in the faculty associations. Are there specific things that you guys want to do with this? How did you come up with the 4,000? Or is it just like you want to put something there symbolically and then have a plan for it later?
Layla, do you want to answer that, or should I go for it?
Layla?
Yeah. I guess I'll answer that. Am I next on the speakers list? Or
You are after Julia, but like if you can answer the question.
yeah. So that number was determined, seeing as this would be the first time this budget line would be created. It was. I'd actually rather just answer everything at once. So do you mind if Julia goes and then I can respond to everything at once?
Well, I'm just gonna say this bluntly there, like take it with a grain of salt. I'm basically ASPA, and I think it's a good idea to have collaborations with CSU so that we can have events together and everything. But I think that we have a lot of students and we already have a lot of money, so 10,000 is a bit excessive. And I think that maybe if this is kind of what Layla had planned, it can go to her and ASMA working to better student initiatives, because student congress didn't happen last year because there wasn't a link, a relationship with each faculty association. So something like that, or if you want to donate a bit of money for events. But I worked a lot with Aloise last year and with Lana, and we got a lot of money from those committees for specific initiatives, so ideas and stuff. And I think that 4,000 is completely reasonable, and it would be great if like Asma and Layla had a chance to like talk to faculty associations and come up with a plan of what they want to do. But I think 4,000 is like plenty, and ASFA doesn't really need that money.
Thank you. Layla?
So just to clarify a little bit the intention behind this and the reasoning for the 4,000 and why I personally would speak against increasing it is partially that the CSU, as Rowan said a bit earlier, we represent all students, but it doesn't necessarily, for one, doesn't necessarily mean that we represent the faculties within that in the same capacity. So this part of this would also be to offer some support to faculties with the understanding that the main initiatives that come from students often come more from student groups or clubs rather than through faculties. And the faculties also have their own money that they budget throughout the year for these events. There's also the student life budget, which when we get to it, you'll all see that it's been increased. So there is other funds available to student groups to apply. And the same within the special project funding. Because this would be the first year it's happening, it would be in a way a pilot. So I would be hesitant to make it a larger amount, seeing as I haven't had the chance to meet with every single student life or equivalent from each faculty, and I'd be hesitant to like assign a large amount of money to projects that haven't even been discussed properly. But mainly, this would not be to have, say, one event that would be about the CSU and a faculty association collaborating on one singular event. It would be more to support initiatives that are happening. Also, given that we have a fairly extensive and new sustainability policy that I foresee preventing us from collaborating with either certain companies or certain groups that may work with other faculty associations, or there may be ways in which we can't be fully part of certain events based off that policy. I think it's unwise to assign a lot of money and then not be able to actually spend it. This would be more to support things that are happening on campus. If a faculty association is having an event, we could assist with the room booking. We also have a lot of other ways in which we can support those events. So it's symbolic, but it's also more about supporting and keeping that connection rather than creating like a collaborative event singular.
Thank you. Jeremy and then Bill?
So I just wanted to tackle some of the arguments or some of the points that have brought up in a logical fashion. This would actually, the increase to $10,000 would only make it $2,500 per faculty association, which I believe it's CCSL funding, which is Concordia Initiative, is $2,500 with the ability up to $5,000. I might be wrong that it's not CCSL, and it's another funding opportunity through the CSU. So this would put it on par with the ability to pitch. And I do agree that we are not an umbrella organization, but we have to understand who we are representing here. We're also representing students, and it's something that our students do want. Our students do want to have the ability to collaborate and have this cross-faculty, specifically through their faculty associations, but that's not the only limitation here. The fact that I also want to emphasize here is that this is a simply budgeted amount of $10,000. It does not require them to spend that $10,000. At the end of the year, they could only spend up to $4,000 or less. But by reducing it to $4,000 or keeping it at $4,000, you're only providing restrictions on the ability of what they can accomplish with it. They have yet to meet with these faculties association, yet to understand the type of initiatives that they might be going forward with. So this $4,000 might not be enough. By upping it to $10,000, we're giving them more opportunity to do so, and also aligning with what our students want, who we are representing here today. Also, I want to note here that there is $60,000 in profit for this current year. So if we do not budget this money and use this money, where does it go? It's not wasted at the end of the day. It's put into a bank account and stored. But if we do spend it on the students, and the students who paid that tuition today, they will see immediate benefits from it, because it's not your own individual faculties that drive the long-lasting relationships that people really enjoy and get out of their university experience. It's through collaboration and reaching out to these multiple faculties.
Okay, so right now we're discussing increasing line 120 or collaboration to $10,000 from previous $4,000. Speakers list is Layla, Rowan, and Sule. Layla?
I think it was maybe giving the most opportunities to any student group to apply for funding or to work with the CSU budget to make things happen. then it's important to note that the student life budget is for the large part unassigned. It's something I'm working on this summer, and I'll work with my committee. There's plenty of funds within that that can go to different initiatives, including potentially faculty initiatives, as well as other student groups. And I think staff, like if we're going to insert $6,000 more into a budget, it should be inserted into the student life budget over money that may or may not be used by a faculty association in a collaborative budget that hasn't yet even been properly explored with those groups. So if there's a need for that funding by student groups, then I think it should go to somewhere where it's available to all student groups, not just faculty associations.
Yeah, I was gonna make 2 points. The first was, yeah, addressing the limits thing, and I was just gonna say what Layla just said, essentially that, like, there's no limits because they can just go to other funding lines. And I think the next one was surplus, which I think Sulei's on the speakers list.
Yeah, he's next.
Okay, yeah, he can explain that better than I could then. So,
Great. Am I next on?
Yeah.
All right, so Dylan said that we're making a $60,000 profit. That is kind of true, but also not. So at the end of the budget, you'll see like the net revenues, net losses. Basically, we're at a $60,000 budgeted surplus for the operations, but the overall budget for the CSU, which includes a lot of other things, we're going to be budgeted at a loss, so a deficit, which is actually like something that we're aiming for because in order to keep our not-for-profit status, for the past few years, they've been accumulating a surplus, so we need to spend a lot of money this year.
Thank you. Kenny?
I'll echo everything Layla said, to be honest. I believe that it's a great initiative, but I would like to have some example of what's happening in the collaboration. I think it's a committee or activities before increasing the budget line to $10,000. And in worst case scenario, it can still be amended throughout the year if they are in need of more funds.
Great. So we're now out of speakers, and the motion on the table is to increase line 120 to 10,000. So if there's no further discussion, we can move to a vote. So all those in favor, please raise your placards. 6. All those opposed? 5. And any abstentions?
Can I have mine noted?
2, yes. 3, and Julia noted. Okay, so the amendment carries 5-4. And with that, there's no speakers list, so I'll give the floor back to Souley because it's your budget.
Cool. So we're increasing collaboration to 10,000?
Yes.
I'm just gonna make a note of that here. Cool. All right, next, line 121, student life initiatives. Layla kind of went into detail about that earlier. We're increasing it slightly. That's, yeah. Handbook commissions, that's expenses for, you know, special art, stuff like that for the handbook. Handbook printing, we're printing a lot less handbooks this year, simply because we had like way too many left over last year. The next line, 125, handbook, is a special line that was basically created to not go way too over budget on handbook printing. So no money there. Next, 126, DISH project expense. As I explained earlier, in the revenues, we have DISH project revenues, which comes from the Silk Fund. This is just for transparency. Comes out of the expenses because from this, the project itself that was passed at council, it should come from the operating budget. Cool? Any questions so far? I saw some like confused looks earlier.
Yeah, I'm not sure to understand the handbook thing, to be honest.
Line 125?
I don't have the lines, I'm sorry. For me, it's like 6190.
Okay, yeah, sorry. So it's row 125. 6190 is its code in the accounting software.
I don't have the number.
Okay, so basically 6115 is handbook printing.
Yeah.
They went over budget for that. Handbook, they had to create it so that they don't like go way too over budget on handbook printing, but it's essentially the same thing. That's from my understanding anyway. If I'm wrong, and you know, any like old coordinators can correct me. What's up?
It's literally because of Sage. That's it. The accounting software. That was the only reason.
Okay. Anyway, so we don't have it. We're not using Sage anymore. We're using Akomba, and yay. So this project expense. Next, 127. We're at CSU support. So the CSU support line is a new line, basically to help our services actually do the things that they need to do or that they want to do, right? So we have the LIC, the Advocacy Center, and HOJO, which are the three services. As you'll see later, once we get to advocacy, their fee levy dropped, and as a result, they are going to be incurring like a pretty massive deficit. The CSU support line has been added to all of the revenues of the different services to like help them out in case that happens. It's sort of a temporary like band-aid solution. A long-term solution would be to have a referendum to increase the fee levy for for the Advocacy Center so that they can keep being, keep operating. But we'll get into more details lower. Next up, 128 speaker series. So after speaking with Asma and Ahmed, they both want to do more speaker series events, so we increased that line. Special projects, that's special project funding. As Layla had mentioned before, we wanted to increase it as well. Sustainability, 23,000 was budgeted last year, only 10,000 was used. So we decided to decrease it a little bit, but after speaking with Devin, we're pretty sure we're going to hit that mark. We're at line 131. Yep, what's up?
Would it be possible to add some, like $2,000 to sustainability to be used for a specific purpose? So we have a motion, we have a position, excuse me, to support individuals that menstruate. And so I think the Sustainability Committee should be responsible and be given an extra $2,000 that would solely be for the purpose of purchasing menstrual hygiene products and distributing them to clubs with Veronica. So I think they should have it and look into purchasing them with $2,000 because that's the amount that we researched last year. That would make sense.
Yeah, just is 2,000 enough? Like, how many menstrual hygiene products are you going to be providing?
Yeah, so we had just decided 2,000 of them for now, for the time being, so that they could look into like sustainable options. And then if we were to have more, then it would be up to Devin's committee to like bring it forward. But we had talked about it last year.
Okay.
So if I'm just moving to add $2,000 to solely be used for the purpose of buying menstrual hygiene products that are sustainable. And then once they find the perfect fit, they could decide in the committee how much they want to spend more.
Was that a motion?
Yeah, I just moved.
Okay.
To add $2,000.
Speakers list. Don't do that again. Second?
Okay.
Dylan? I meant motivate after your motion.
Okay.
Not before. Okay, so since you've already motivated, the motion is to add $3,000, $2,000 to line.
Do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
To line.
To sustainability.
130.
Yeah,
Perfect.
the budget number is 6500, and then it's for Devin to decide with her committee if they want to add more, and then work with Veronica to see how to distribute them to clubs, because we have a position on that.
Okay. That'll be a motion. And then for the budget consideration, so we'll entertain the motion as a whole, but for the budget consideration, when we ratify the budget, we'll be talking about adding the $2,000.
Perfect.
Okay. So is there any discussion to be had on the addition of $2,000 to line 130? With the other provisions as well. Okay, so all those in favor, please raise your placards. 12, all those opposed, and any abstentions?
Can I have my yes voted?
Yep. Okay. Yes, did you want to add something?
Yeah. Thanks everyone. I'm really into menstrual hygiene products, so thanks.
Thank you. Sule?
Yeah. So we just finished sustainability, so we increased by $2,000 to bring it up to $21,000. Next up, we have Loyola initiatives. That's increasing as well because Gabby has a lot of special plans for Loyola. If you want to go into more detail now or later, it's up to you. Anyway, 132 academic initiatives going way up again because Asma has a lot of really cool projects that she wants to put into place, and once she goes into more detail about them, you'll understand why we're increasing it so much. Conferences, we're going to be trying to host an academic conference. Yeah.
Sorry, so when you mentioned that about Gabby and her initiatives and then Asma and her initiatives, could could we give them a chance to speak now, or is there a scheduled time for them to speak later?
I think as they flesh them out and get more like accurate numbers,
okay,
they'll be able to give you like what's actually feasible and what's not.
Well, no, just because you said like this budget was because they had all these extra cool ideas and they were going to mention them, and I was like waiting for that pause of them mentioning them.
Sure. I mean,
just like broad base, right?
Sure.
I have Layla and Rowan on the speakers list, but if since Gabby and Asma were the ones mentioned, would you be okay if they directly responded? Okay. Gabby?
Okay, so I have a couple initiatives planned for Loyola. So for starters, I have a partnership plan with CARA, which is the Student Association for Animal Rights, and the SPCA. Basically, my plan would be to bring a couple of animals down to Loyola Quad and bring awareness about the importance of adoption and give some students the opportunity to adopt animals on the spot as well. And I also want to rent the dome for the winter and organize a Quidditch tournament for charity. So every team would pitch in, I think it's a $10 buy-in per person, and every team would choose a charity of that's been pre-approved by us. I think it's important to bring more people down to Loyola during the winter, so just taking advantage that the dome is heated. I also would like to do it doesn't have an official name yet, but something that I want to call something like Loyola Culture Fest. So I would like to do this hopefully in September, not during orientation, but it would be an opportunity to make students bond through music. So I want to bring different DJs, different genres, Afrobeats, electronic. So it would be a really cool thing because I feel the parties here, student parties, are very separated because people are not really willing to delve into each other's cultures. So I think music is a great way to do that. And I also have a couple initiatives with Layla, just for orientation to discuss for the projects at Loyola. And there's also, well, this is not going to come out of the Loyola fund, but I'm in talks with Andrew Woodall to gain control of the G Lounge. To make sure that it's a well-utilized space. It's right next to the CSU office, so that's just in the talks right now, but I will tell you later how that develops. Yeah, that's it for now.
Thank you. Asma, would you like to?
Yeah, actually, I didn't prepare anything. I didn't come in with the intention of presenting anything. It's too early for me to actually kind of present a skeleton of what I'm discussing. I've mentioned a few ideas just really directly, a lot of BIPOC affirming literature that I'm trying to make accessible to clubs, ensuring that there's a lot of there's work that we can put in for decolonizing the educational system, so initiatives towards that go in with some of the work that we're putting in for the agenda that we're forming as well, so the stuff that goes in line with our articles for each month. Also for positions we've taken in our book, so there's a lot of stuff that's too early for me to confirm. There's a lot of things I need to look at in terms of their real feasibility, but there's some interesting stuff that's come in that I'll be presented to you guys.
Thank you. So I have Rowan, Layla, and then Reem.
Emerson.
Okay, Layla? Okay, Reem? Okay.
Cool. All right, so we're at row 133, which is conferences. Actually, I just mentioned this, so we want to host an academic conference. Row 134, campaigns should be the same as last year. Yeah. Loyola luncheon expenses and salaries, that's for the luncheon at Loyola. 138, orientation, we're increasing by a bit, and that's because we want to go for quality over quantity for the events. Orientation salaries is increasing from the forecast because we're going to be, well, they'll be having more hours basically, and they're all the wage went up as well. Yeah.
Rory and Julia. Sorry, Rory, I guess first.
Yeah, it's a question that I may turn into a motion. I'm just concerned for the conference line that it's not sufficient. I know from running academic conferences with student groups that $1,000 is like not enough to hold a real conference that's of benefit to students. I mean, unless you're charging like huge ticket prices. So I'm just wondering if maybe we could add some money there so that a conference is really beneficial if we hold it. Because that is something that's like really useful to students.
Okay. Asma, what do you think? Yeah.
Julia? is next on the speakers list. If anyone has a number they want to throw out there, they can put themselves on the speakers list as well.
Yeah, so orientation salaries went from 45 to 42.
Yeah, but so they were budgeted at 45 last year, but they actually only spent 32. So they're going up from the forecasted 32. So the variances that I'm doing is with the forecasted closing budget. Those aren't the final closing numbers. We'll have those in like a month. But yeah, back to conferences though. I've like helped run several academic conferences, and I believe that 10,000 is an adequate number for like a large scale conference. What do you guys all think? Yes?
I have a speakers list of Layla and then Rory as well who have questions. But if you want to fill the room, that's fine too.
I mean, sure, okay. So too.
Point of information?
Yeah.
Sula, you said 10,000?
For conferences, yeah. It's at 1,000 now. We're at line 133. It's at 1,000. We're debating increasing it to 10,000.
Okay.
Okay. So wait, sorry. There was no actual motion on the table to increase it. Oh, okay. Okay.
Can I ask my
I have Layla and Rory first, but yeah, point of information.
is this budget line managed by ASMA?
Sorry?
Is this budget line managed by ASMA?
It's to the discretion of the executives, but I believe ASMA will be taking over it.
Okay. Well.
I'll put you on the speakers list. So Layla, Rory, Rowan, and Julia.
Just as far as organizing the conference, a lot of the things that are new are also intended to be done in collaboration. So I would assume that this would not be necessarily a purely CSU organized conference. It would be in collaboration with other groups. So that budget may not be also reflective of the full budget of the conference.
Rory?
From my experience, depending on the number of students, I've ran events where you get 100 students there and it costs between 3,000 and 4,500, 5,000. If you want 200, 250 students there, you don't want to have to charge them tickets. Anything from 6,000 to 8,000. Most of those expenses do come from things like the venue, which you can save a lot of costs by doing things, of course, here at school, and then the food. So you can hold a shoestring budget conference and still get some academic value from it. But if you're holding, drinks and, a networking cocktail or whatever at the end, I think like a $6,000, $7,000 budget line is pretty sufficient. If there are collaborations, there is, revenue from ticket sales or whatnot, then that just leaves the opportunity of maybe doing a second conference or having that sort of buffer room for doing maybe a smaller conference type event at the end, right? This is a budget line where that value is 100% going back to students, whether it's spent, whether it's not. And I think it's really low risk to put more money into it. It's not like it's not going to be, it's not going to have a return for students at the end of the day.
Thank you. Rowan, Julia, and then Dylan.
I'll rescind.
Okay, Julia?
Rescind.
Okay, Dylan?
I just wanted to bring up that it could definitely fall within the $6,000 to $10,000 range to hold an academic conference for 200 people. Also, if the CSU starts to invite people who might not be around Montreal who hold very similar views as many of our students, flying them in can rack up the expenses, but adds tremendous value to students and can actually get students from across Concordia to come out to see the individual and to hear them speak.
Thank you. So no current amendment or motion to amend the budget on the table. Rowan, and then Rory.
I'm sorry, I'll rescind again.
Okay, Rory?
I move to amend budget line 133 to the amount of $6,000.
Second.
Okay, seconded by Julia. Rory, your motivation?
I think 6,000 gives enough for there to be wiggle room if the executive decides to do something smaller scale or decides to do something where they're extending ticket sales, but then gives them it's enough that if they were to do collaboration, they could make a bigger event. So it really gives them that flexibility of if they need more, they need less. The money's there for them.
Perfect. Thank you. So the motion on the table is to amend line 133 to $6,000. Is there any more discussion, or can we move to vote? Okay, so all those in favor, please raise your placards. 7, 8, 9. All those opposed? And any abstentions? 2, 3.
Yes.
Okay, and Rory's yes noted.
So we're raising conferences to 6,000.
Yes, if that is indeed line 133.
Yeah, 30.
All right, 33.
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Yes, Reem?
Personal privilege. Can I
early. Oh, the excusal is it's 90 minutes before you have an absence, so you can leave and come back. Just to let you know, just to make sure we're all on the same page. An absence is more than 90 minutes from a council meeting. Sorry for interrupting your budget, Sule. I just got a lot of questions about this at break. If you need to leave for whatever reason, you can raise your placard and ask for council to excuse you. Please don't use this liberally at every meeting because you don't want to be here. But yeah, I'm just letting you know that's the general procedure. Try to maybe wait until a point's done, because interrupting the point to have a motion and blah, blah, blah kind of throws off whoever's presenting, but yeah, just throwing that out there. All right, speakers list, Rowan and then Ahmed.
Just while we were on a similar topic, I'd just like all councillors to know, because I don't remember if it's ever been explicitly said, if the meetings go on past the time of like the metro or whatever being open, I believe there is provisions so that people will get taxis home or whatever, so that they don't have to take public transit at night. Maybe someone can expand on that, because I don't remember it in detail, but yeah.
We actually just went over the line earlier where it's council expenses.
But there is a way home.
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, if we go way over the limit, you take a taxi, it's on the CSU, you just have to submit a check for that. If you don't know how to do that, come by my office. I'll walk it through. Okay.
There was a question from Ahmed or okay.
Cool. So.
Sorry.
Oh.
I don't know if I'm allowed to do that, but I want to be excused for 40 minutes, but in case we decide to vote on the budget, I would like to have...
Oh, sorry, you have to be here. You have to be present to vote.
Alright. No, I would like to make a motion saying that if we can all take a look to the budget before we decide to vote on it. Is that possible? Or
Sorry,
like if we can, before like voting on the budget, approving it, can we have a time to go through it before accepting it? That was my point.
A recess.
Yes, I can allow a recess to go over it after all the amendments have been made. I'm tracking them, and so is the minute keeper as well, so we can put them in the group. Roy, did you want to say something?
Yeah, what I would suggest is that maybe at the very end, right before we're done the budget thing, you could motion to table to the end of council or table for a certain period of time, and then that way we can be efficient. We can keep going through the agenda, right? And then it's not like, okay, everyone take a break to go look at it and come back.
Okay.
It's a possibility, right? It's a way to get around it.
That works as well. Okay, without further ado, Sule.
So we're at 140. So bursaries. We decided to increase it slightly from the operating budget, but we'll likely be using some of the endowment fund to give out more bursaries because, yay, money.
Sorry, can you repeat that, please? What did you say, bursaries?
We're going to increase the amount of bursaries that are given out.
Yeah, but you said something else.
About the endowment fund?
Yeah, and then you said a word before bursaries, but I didn't hear you.
To use some of the endowment fund for more bursaries?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. Good?
Yeah, it's fine. I can hear more and I heard something else.
All right. Okay, so we're now at 146, which is expenses expenses from prior years not accrued. So that's basically expenses from last year that roll on over to this year. And then we have 147, which is miscellaneous. All right, so miscellaneous, the miscellaneous budget line is kind of a rainy day fund type of thing. So for example, if we decide, oh hey, we want to spend way more on this budget line throughout the year, instead of just taking money straight out of the bank account, we can just reallocate some of the miscellaneous to that budget line. So the miscellaneous line will be decreased, and the budget line that goes to it will be increased. Does that make sense?
I just wanted to clarify, what's the approval authority for miscellaneous fund? Because
council. Yeah. So basically, if we see that, oh hey, we want to do, for example, for conferences, it's 6,000 right now, but throughout the year we're like, wow, we have an opportunity for an amazing speaker that costs $15,000 because I don't know, they're from Japan or something. So we decide to bring it to council, and we're like, hey, we want to increase conferences by X amount because we think that we can bring in this speaker who would be amazing, and it'll be bring a lot more value to the event. So we'll take the money out of the miscellaneous, so we'll reduce miscellaneous, and we'll increase campaigns. Conferences. Is everybody cool with that? Council votes. If council's cool with it, then it passes. All right? Does that make sense to everybody? Cool. All right. So the net revenues / deficit from operations, we're at $87,000 in net revenues from just operations, which is $112,000 less than the forecasted ending for last year, which is what we want. And then we're going to go through the services and then the clubs, and that'll give us our total budget. So first service, Hojo. So line 160, off-campus housing job bank, Dean of Students CCSL, CSU support, work study, and housing and job bank fees. These are all revenues that Hojo gets. As I had mentioned before, there's a new line at 162 called CSU support for Hojo. This line was initially created for advocacy, but since advocacy is one of our 3 services, we decided to add it to all 3 services in case one day they might need extra help. So it's the CSU support line for services. In expenses, you have your standard Hojo salaries, employee benefits, then we're off to admin office expenses, so at line 177. Hojo office supplies, there's a typo there, it should be 2 P's, but sorry about that. That's pretty self-explanatory. 178 Hojo subscriptions, all other expenses. This is all just like stuff that Hojo spends on throughout the year. Throughout the year, I will also be working with all the services to kind of elaborate or schedule their expenses to make a more elaborate budget, so that we can be more transparent in how things are spent. Then we're off to Hojo website, so that's increasing quite a bit because they're doing a lot of translation for the website. They're translating to French, to Mandarin, I think it's English, French, Mandarin, and they're also migrating from one platform to another. So overall, the expenses for Hojo go up. But they're still in a good financial position. So ideally, we want to have between negative 10,000 and plus 10,000 in net revenues deficit, just because that's usually, like, we're not for profit, so we should be within that range. And it also works with their bank balance. So we're moving on to advocacy, and this is where you'll understand why there's a CSU support line. So advocacy fees went down. As per the referendum for the reallocation. But as a result, they are incurring way too high a deficit. Oh, yeah, what's up?
Sorry, I'm going off the top of my head here, but didn't the fees for advocacy actually go up?
They might have gone up, but they're still lower than they used to be. And they, like, long term, they need to go up again for them to be, like, sustainable. And by sustainable, I mean like financially sustainable.
Yeah.
Okay. So the Advocacy Center has a lot of projects and stuff that they want to do, but because they don't have enough incoming money to do it, and their bank balance is taking a big hit, they can't do all the projects that they want to do. We don't like that. We want them to do as much as they can do because, hey, that's awesome. Do as many things as you can do. So the expense for the CSU support is coming out of the student initiatives section in the operating budget, because student engagement initiatives, because it's literally we're giving support to our services so they can engage more students. So that comes back as CSU support for advocacy and revenues of $16,060, which is the amount that they need to be good with their ending bank balance. So if you go all the way down to line 218, is everybody there? 218? Yep, cool.
Point of information, which is what number? Because I'm looking at it on my phone.
It just says net revenues deficit advocacy. Do you want to actually just look over my computer screen?
No,
or mine?
Or, yeah, okay. Yeah, so you'll see that forecast, they're at plus 53,500. That's because they are now working with the GSA as well, and the GSA gave them $90,000 to be able to do things. But they were budgeted at a $14,000 loss last year. So the $53,500 surplus is carried over to this year. So we're budgeting for them to basically break even and spend that $53,500. So you'll see in the highlighted column it says negative $53,500. That just means that their bank balance is going to stay the same. Cool. All right. I can go into more details for their expenses, but it's like pretty self-explanatory for all the lines. LIC. So we're at 227. CSU support LIC again for the support for the services, but they're not getting any money because they're in a good financial position. For their expenses, there's a new line at 243 called LIC Special Projects. This is a line that's been missing from previous years that we decided to add for transparency reasons. And yeah, overall the LIC is going to be doing all right. They're at 6,915 for their net revenues in a surplus. All right, clubs. So we're at line 258. Club fees, that's the club fee levy. Clubs funding is basically the revenues that the clubs make through their projects and stuff and their events. I don't know why it wasn't budgeted for last year. It should be, but anyway. So we're basing ourselves off of last year. After talking with Veronica, we want to push the clubs to have more events and to do more things. So we expect their funding their revenues to go up. In their expenses, you'll see there's a bunch of blanks. That's because we can't really allocate expenses to clubs until Club Committee goes through their budgets with them and decides how much each one is getting. But instead, if you go all the way down to line 378, you have clubs' other expenses, and that's basically the pool from which the club's specific expenses comes out of. So the clubs committee takes the 180 grand, meets with all the clubs, assesses how much they need, and then gives them from that pool. You'll notice it also increased by about almost $30,000. That's because, again, as I said before, we want the clubs to do more things, and in order to do that, sometimes they need to spend more money. What's up?
Question from Howard.
Yeah.
The club's special projects, how is that counted? And if it was decreased, why it was decreased to zero? It's
Okay,
at the
so,
top. It's right under expenses.
Okay, give me 1 second.
Okay.
Club special projects. That's, I guess, special clubs projects. Do you want to go into more detail?
Yeah. So essentially, whatever, say, a club has an unforeseen event that they actually want to organize that wasn't budgeted in their original budget, they could submit a special club funding request, and then that goes through the same process as their budget. So the committee meets, and we essentially allocate them money if we see that this event will be beneficial to their club and like the general their membership.
If I could just add to that, we didn't budget for it this year because it's just going to come out of club's other expenses.
Okay.
Cool. Any other questions? Okay, then club salaries and employee benefits, that's pretty straightforward. So in summary, if you go down to 398, I'm kind of ticked off that we're not at an even 400, but oh well. So you'll see that we're at a surplus of 46,219 after the changes, right? Before the changes, I think it was 59,000 something. So you should be seeing 59,000 if you haven't made the changes that we were talking about before. Yes? Cool. As long as we're over 45, we're in a good financial position. So you'll see here we're in a surplus, but amortization costs aren't accounted for in the operating budget. They come out of something else, so we're actually going to be at a deficit. If you want more details on that, you can definitely come see me and Robert, and we will run you through everything in more detail, but it's going to take way too long to do at a council meeting because I don't have all the information right now with me. Any questions? Yeah.
Are you able to utilize your IT and miscellaneous since it's IT infrastructure? Like certain line items of it?
Good.
Well, then you need council approval. Sorry.
To capitalize it?
To capitalize it?
You have a direct response.
Well, didn't you just say you want it under miscellaneous? So every time you use it, you'd have to ask council?
No, it's under the IT line item. The IT and MIS, right?
Yeah. So you're talking about IT equipment? Just general equipment?
Well, there were some of the line items.
So which line items are you talking about? Slash, can we maybe look at it like through FinCom?
Yeah.
And then bring it back? Cool.
For sure.
So the budget as it stands, I guess, are we making a motion at the end of
Yeah,
the
to
meeting?
ratify the budget with the 3 amendments.
Cool.
Yes, Julie?
I move to ratify the budget with the 3
Is that where we are,
amendments that were
Julie?
made.
Oh, the budget's done. Yeah, we're.
Okay, I just want to make sure you were done. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect.
Yes. Do we have a second? Dylan? Yes, Sule?
Just because Khadija and Rim had said that they wanted to be a part of that vote, and we had suggested that we ratify at the end of the council meeting.
Well, the motion's on the floor, so you can move to table the vote until later.
Okay.
Also,
Julia?
we didn't make a motion about it.
Yeah.
So I think we
Okay,
can
no, I
just
just wanted to bring it up.
Is council okay with voting now, or is there any opposition? Omar?
Because they had requested, I think we should wait. We're not obliged to, but it doesn't change anything, just a matter of time.
Dylan?
I think the motion that the finance coordinator of the CSU provided updated forecast for the previous fiscal year.
There's already a motion on the table, though, to approve the budget. It's just the question is whether people are going to table
Can I
it.
speak to that real quick?
Can I motivate because I didn't?
Okay, because yeah, there's like 3 different things going on right now, so it's Julia's turn to motivate. And then if anyone wants to table, that's their prerogative.
I think we all agree on the budget and that they were there for the changes, the main changes, and that it's fine. And if they want to revisit it later, then they can do that. So, yeah, good budget. Well done, everyone.
Thank you. Okay, is there anything else to be added? Okay, so if not, we can move to ratify the budget with the 3 amendments as discussed. So all those in favor, please raise your placards. 11, all those opposed. And any abstentions? 0. Perfect, so the budget is ratified. Is there anything else to be discussed under the 5B budget point? Okay, so if not, we can move on to 5C, which is signing officers. And Layla, I believe this was yours?
Nope.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. So signing officers, if those of you who were here last council-elect meeting, yeah. If you guys remember, we had said that it would be Rowan and Rory for now, since there weren't enough members that were, or enough councillors that were there. And we said that we would revisit the discussion in September. However, we are a lot more today, and I just wanted to bring up the subject in case somebody wanted to sign things.
I'd like to be like a nominee to this committee if possible.
Okay, the signing officers, just for some context, last meeting 2 were appointed, but there were just some questions around the legality issues of being signing officers, but I think they're going to be answered shortly. Julia?
Just in the spirit of, the fact that we appointed 2 people last time, and I think they did a good job, I moved to, oh, sorry, I said it first, but it's late. I moved to have Rowan and Rory continue their appointment as signing officers for the CSU.
For the remainder of the academic year?
Until December.
Okay. Do we have a second? Kemi, you already motivated, so I'll open discussion. Omar?
I think the whole reason that we are doing that is because they're also on on the finance committee. And it didn't look right at the time for us to do it, but because there weren't other people that could have been the signing officers, we appointed them until September. So either way, council, there is a motion that was approved until September. So we can either wait till September and reappoint someone new, or change it now.
The motion is basically to extend till December. That's on the table. Rowan? And then Julia?
Yeah, I think I was the one who originally brought up that issue. I don't see the point in extending our mandates. Like we're both still on finance committee, unless I haven't heard of something that happened, but like that just doesn't make sense to me. As for, I was just gonna split the finance committee. Sorry.
It's okay. Julia?
Can I ask Rowan a question?
Yeah.
Rowan, do you want to be a signing officer?
I'm okay with being a signing officer. I think that it's ideal that some of the signing officers are not on finance committee, but I also think that we've already set a mandate till September, unless there's a clear reason that clear sign that someone else wants to step in now, I certainly don't see a reason to extend it till December.
Okay, just for procedure's sake, if a signing officer wants to resign, they have to send me the thing. So just throwing that out there. Julia?
Okay, so
And then to
I want to move forward with my motion to keep them till December, and if they do a bad job or want to resign, then they can do it then.
Okay, Tabia, and then Ahmed, and then Omar.
Simple question. How does it work to assign to a committee? Like,
Can someone answer, just explain signing officer?
So basically, so when you're a signing officer, it means that during the approval process for checks, there's like multiple layers of it happening, right? So once you submit a check requisition, the person who's supervising the budget, for example, if you submit a check during orientation, then Layla would have to go over the expense, make sure that it's legit, signs off on it, sends it to me, I reconcile, make sure it's legit, sign it off, the check gets made, and then you need 2 people signing it for you to get your money, basically. The signing officers we have right now are Omar, Rowan, and Rory. And we had said at last council-elect meeting that since they're also on finance committee, it might look kind of weird that they're also signing officers. So we would look into changing the signing authorities once more council members are present. Now that there are more council members present, I figured, hey, let's bring it back up, see if we want to change now or if we want to wait until September, which was the original motion.
Thank you. Okay. So I have Peter, Julia, and then Rory. Peter?
Yeah, just have a question. Since he just brought it up, how does this work? So I just want to have a quick question. If we are in charge of budget of another association that has not in CSU, but we are already on CSU, so do we have to go through the signing officer to
before we get to you, or how does that going to be able to work? What do you mean? So like,
response?
yeah, so are you, yeah. Can you
What I mean is like, if we are in charge of budget that are not in the CSU, for example, in another association or a club or something like that, so, but then we are already on the CSU itself, so do we still have to go through the signing officer to give to them and then they have to sign to you?
So you go to the supervising person for the budget line, right? So even if you're a counselor, right? But let's say you help out for a specific event and you buy the food with your own credit card, but we already budgeted for the food to be bought. So you take that money, that receipt, you make a check rec to the person who's in charge of the event. They sign off on it, they give me the check rec, I look at it, make sure it's like everything's good, I sign off on it. Once the check is made, the 2 signing officers need to come in and sign it so that you can get your money. Does that make sense?
Oh, sorry, Peter, I have to cut you off just because you've already answered your question. Please, you want to go back to the speakers list. Julia?
Pearson.
Okay, Rory, and then Rowan?
Yeah, I just very briefly want to talk about, I guess, my perspective on the division of authority or the division of power between, say, a signing officer and someone on finance committee. I don't think there's a huge issue or a huge conflict of interest, just because the finance committee deals with making decisions on large budget lines, sort of broader allocations of funds, and knowing where those funds are or what those allocations are allow you to sort of understand why you're signing these checks for certain amounts. The other thing is that as a business, having multiple signing officers is there is a redundancy feature. So what that does is it just means that Sule has already checked it, the bookkeeper has already checked checked the expense, the receipt, etc. And this is the second set of eyes to take a look at it and say, okay, wait a minute, someone missed a 0, or someone didn't see that they forgot tax, or wait, this receipt was in US dollars, we're paying them in Canadian, maybe we need to pay them more, whatever it is. It's to sign off on something, to put a second set of eyes on it. So it's not in any way, shape, or form, in my opinion, connected to, oh, okay, because I'm on finance committee, I know that this money was spent over here, therefore, I'm gonna sign that check over there. It's really just like anyone else being able to take a second look at something and, edit it or see that it's, been done properly. And I think it's just maybe easier or more efficient when you have someone on finance committee, because they're not looking at these checks being like, what the hell is this for? They understand where this money's coming from.
Thank you. Rowan, Omar, and then Julia.
Yeah, to me, there's kind of two different discussions going on. There's some people that are saying that like we should do the replacements now, which, as Caitlin already mentioned, like can't happen because we haven't resigned. And then there's other people trying to extend the deadline, which again doesn't make much sense to me. Like whether we extend it or not, whether Rory and I decide to do it again or not, like it's going to have to be approved at some point. We may as well just make it sooner in September. This motion really doesn't make much sense to me. I don't see the benefit of it.
Yeah, the motion on the floor is to extend until December. Omar and then Julia.
Yeah, so again, it's like, why would we extend a motion? And again, for the sake of transparency and so on, to not have the same people looking at it over and over again. Yeah, it's good that they know what's going on, where the funds are coming and going from, but it's not difficult for other councillors to also understand. So we should definitely not extend their mandate until December. If anything, we should leave it to September and revisit it. The reason that it was brought here today is to do it now instead of September.
Thank you. Julia?
I move to amend my motion to table till September.
Okay, that's fine. Do we have a second?
Actually,
Camille? Yes?
yeah, in the minutes it already says to September, so we don't need a motion at all.
Well, we already have a motion on the table.
Well, yeah, it's because the motion itself on the table
Yeah.
is to extend the mandate to December, so
Never
we just have
mind.
to table the general discussion and motion to
Never mind.
September. So we'll just get it out of the way. Is there any discussion we had on tabling? Okay, all those in favor of tabling the motion and general discussion to the September meeting, please raise your placards. 9, all those opposed, and 1, and any abstentions? 0, perfect. So this is tabled. Is there anything else to be discussed on the signing officers, or can we move on? Perfect, so we're at appointments. Just a little thing, someone mentioned this last meeting, which is a very good point, and I apologize if I did this wrong for appointments, because there's some people that move to be appointed in absentia and things like that. So if we're referring to people and if you don't know them or you don't know them super well, could we just use gender neutral pronouns, because we don't want to assume anyone's gender identity for the counselors that aren't here. So just keeping that in mind. We'll move on to 6A, which is clubs and space. Did you have something to mention before we move on?
Yeah, just the same motion.
Yeah.
I move that contested councillor appointments be done by secret ballot, with each councillor having the same number of votes as there are available seats. If I can just give that to you.
Okay, same as last week. Seconded by Julia.
Also, I'd be added to the list.
Yeah. Your motivation?
Yeah, we did this last time. For those of you that aren't here, essentially the point is like it does it all by secret ballot. This just allows that, like, since there's a lot of counselors that don't know each other, you don't see someone voting against you and take it personally, and it just kind of keeps relations on a more friendly basis.
Thank you. Julia?
Can I also amend the motion to
Yeah.
have the whole idea of it for the future sent to policy committee so that they could add it to the standing regs?
Okay, we can entertain the motion to refer to committee as well to add on an amendment. Does anyone have a second? First of all, Kimmy, your motivation, Julia? Yep.
Should that be repeated again? Sorry, as of that.
Yeah, Rowan's motion hopefully is going to pass today. And then because we always do it every time for it to be added to the standing regs, but because like none of us prepared a written motion, ASMA and policy committee could write it pretty and then bring it next time.
Sure. Do you also have motivation while you're?
I trust ASMA.
Okay. So all those in favor of the procedure that we did last time and sending it to policy to be discussed, please raise your placards. 9, all those opposed, and any abstentions? 1, 2, perfect. Okay, so with that we can move on to clubs and space. Veronica, the floor is yours.
Yeah. So I think I have 1 seat available for a counselor. If you're interested in the visioning that we were mandated, but I was mandated to do today, this evening, we will be working on that in the next few days. And the clubs committee, we also approve new clubs, approve their budgets, and approve special club funding. It's a fun committee. If you're interested in clubs and student life in general, then please join.
Thank you. So once again, regular procedure, you can nominate yourself, you need a second, or you can nominate someone else, make sure you have their consent. The floor is open.
Point of information?
Yep.
Just letting everyone know you can be on it if you're in a club.
Thank you. Executive.
Yeah. That's what
Patrick?
I want to be part of that committee because I'm not in a club right now and I understand stuff about dogs.
Okay, do we have a second for Patrick? Was it seconded? Or was it just?
I would like to be like a nominee for the finance committee.
Oh, that's later. That's later. Oh no, sorry. The finance committee is going to be discussed right after this. So, yes.
I'm sorry, Patrick, to put you like in the spot, but could you speak louder a little bit?
Okay, sorry.
No, it's okay.
Oh yeah, it's
next
okay.
time. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we have one nomination, which is Patrick for the Clubs in Space. Do we have a second? Sorry, Sally.
Point of information.
Yep.
Just reminding every counselor that you have to be on one committee.
That's not point
No,
of information.
point of information.
But thank you for the point. All right. Yeah, in the standing regs, it does say that counselors are encouraged. You don't have to be, but it's strongly recommended in the standing regs that everyone sit on one committee. And we have one nomination, which is Patrick.
Just have a question though. If we are, if for example, like we are not get nominated with one or two clubs, or like one or two committees, can we do for another one? Like can we, like how many things, like how many committees are we allowed to nominate ourselves in, like at
You can sit in on as many as you want.
Yeah.
So you can sit on one, you can sit on two, you can sit
no,
on
but
three.
like if we nominate for one and did not get elected,
Yep, you can
we
nominate
move
for
another one?
Yep, absolutely. Rory?
The other thing I think is important to mention is that these clubs are again open, right? So even if you're not nominated for something, if you want to show up to Clubs in Space, you want to show up to finance, like just, say email Veronica or email Sule and be like, hey, I want to know when finance committee or Clubs in Space committee is meeting. And of course, like as a counselor, you're more than welcome to come in and have your say, and know what's going on. That's part of your right. And I mean, I would encourage everyone to do that.
Thank you. Sule? And then Asma?
Yeah, actually, just to add on to Rory's point, I think, what I'm going to be doing for Finance Committee is just posting on the Facebook group when we'll be having our meetings, so that if you want to attend, you can attend. I would encourage, I guess, others to do the same, because, okay, transparency, yeah.
Thank you. Asma?
Everything is always given to councillors to join committees. I would just say to be mindful of clashes between schedules and also ensuring you have enough time to commit to it. Not all committees require the same amount of time. Some require more than others. Like the policy committee, it requires a weekly meeting of at least 1 to 2 hours, and other committees might require once a month. But you want to make sure that if you're on 2 or 3 committees, that you have the ability to, give it time, read all the documents in advance, and so on.
Thank you. Julia?
And then Julie.
Oh, we'll give Patrick the chance to nominate for himself. I'm just getting all the procedural out of the way. Sorry. Jeremy?
Yeah, sorry. Is there? I know this is sort of late already, but was there a place where we could have gone to see what the committees would have demanded of us before we were asked to motivate for ourselves, or motivate for others, because that would have been useful.
Does anyone have a direct response to that?
Can you repeat the question?
Other than the standing regs, by the way. Was there somewhere where we could have gone before we were asked to sort of motivate or choose a committee to be on, where we could have, had a more in-depth
Understanding of.
Yeah, understanding what the committee would be and what our job would be on the committee.
So to my understanding, when we first presented how we were going to be, I guess, going about the whole committee process at the council-elect meeting, I don't know if that was taken down in the minutes, but that's when we kind of gave the job description.
But so for those that weren't, sorry.
For those that weren't, I mean, like Veronica just re-explained what the job description is, like what to expect. And when we're going to be doing the finance committee right after, I'll be going through in detail, like this is what we're going to be doing.
Okay.
Okay.
Cool.
Thank you. So floor is open for any more nominations, questions. Yes, Peter?
Yes. 1 or 2 nominations for the Club and Space Committee too.
Oh, to motivate for Patrick? Sorry?
For nomination.
Who would you like to nominate?
No, because I wanted to nominate for the Space Committee.
Oh, you want to nominate yourself? Yeah. Oh, sorry, I wasn't understanding. Okay, do we have a second? Rory? Okay, so we have 2 nominees for the Clubs and Space Committee. Is there anyone else who'd like to nominate either themselves or someone else? Okay, so at this point, I'll give you both the opportunity to motivate for yourselves, starting with Patrick. Why would you like to sit on Clubs in Space?
Well, because I'm still new to this issue and I want to be part of something else than other association before. Because I was part of ASFA when I was part of the JC committee many years ago, and we did a pretty good job in being part of a club committee. It was something different, a new adventure for me. Thank you.
Peter, why would you like to sit on Clubs in Space?
So for me, over the past years, past years when I was in setup, I was on all kind of clubs. I was involved with all kind of clubs, so I kind of know how the clubs are being functioning and how it's going to be working. Also, during my first year in Concordia, I have involved with several different clubs as well, and then trying to work with them to see how it's going to be able to work in the Concordia community itself. So that's basically the reason why.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, so at this point we have 2 nominees for 1 position. Is there anyone else who would like to speak before we move to a vote? Okay, so since there's 2 nominees for 1 position, it will be done by secret ballot. Are those papers cut off beside you?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
But there's like one-sided.
Yeah, that's fine. They'll come back to me. Okay, so there is motion on one side of them. Sorry, so just make sure that they all come back to me. I'll have to collect them anyways. So you can either choose to vote for 1 person or to abstain. Yeah. Okay, so just a reminder, it's Patrick and Peter who are the nominees for Clubs in Space.
Caitlin, do we get back to you?
Yeah, I'll collect them in 2 seconds. I'll just follow it all once. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. You can vote.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah, but it's because I told security to come early. I
Okay, so Corey and I will count the votes. Corey will act as my witness. Can I steal your pen?
Yeah.
Thank you. Get to be my witness. And we don't release the numbers.
Just want to remind everybody that it's past the meeting, so technically the building is closed. So if you feel like you're down, when you're like walking in the hallways, if you like don't search around.
Thank you very much.
Nobody
Okay.
feel free.
All right, everyone. So I'd like to congratulate both candidates and congratulate everyone. Council, please. Order. Patrick, you are the appointee for the Clubs in Space Committee. So congratulations. Is there anything else to be discussed before we move on to finance? Okay. Oh, and just on a side note, we don't release the vote tallies. I think I mentioned that last week because somebody always asks. So 6B is Finance Committee. Sule.
Okay. Finance committee. So in previous years, finance committee only met like a few times a year to, you know, go over the budget and discuss certain like money things. This year, however, I do want to like kind of revamp our financial policies, talk about the credit card policies that are near non-existent. Just a bunch of things that have to do with money. I have a full list actually that we had spoken about at the first finance committee meeting. I'll just go through it. So we're going to be working on financial control policies. We're going to be working with the clubs committee to work on the club budgets and club financial controls. We were going to do some contract review. We're going to do credit card policies and yeah, go over the budget every so often.
Thank you. So at this point, the floor is open to nominations to the Finance Committee, and there's one seat. Yes, Ahmed?
Yeah, I would like to be a nominee for the finance.
Okay. Seconded by Julia. Is there anyone else who would like to nominate themselves? All right. Ahmed, where would you like to sit on finance?
I think I'm good in math and science, and I think with my knowledge I can help, you know, the structure, how it works, and also like for me it is really important to be just, transparency also, and to be fair. So I'm looking forward to this.
All right. Thank you very much. Is there any discussion to be had? Yes, Julia?
I move to appoint you to finance committee.
Ahmed?
Yes.
Thank you.
But I was going to say a gender and then I didn't want to assume.
Okay. Do we have a second? Dylan? All right. So the motion is to appoint. So all those in favor, since we have one seat for one seat, one appointee for one seat, please raise your placards. 7, 8. All those opposed? And any abstentions? 1. Perfect. Congratulations, you're on the Finance Committee.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, so with that, we can move on to external and campaigns, and this is Ahmed. Or sorry, Awatif, did you have something to add?
Sorry, forgot.
Okay, so we're looking for two candidates. The external campaign committee is concerned with social and political movement. We're working on the CSU annual campaign as well as other campaigns. And in brief, it's a committee that is related to campaign and mobilization, not to networking.
I do have a personal interest.
Yes.
What other campaigns?
Other campaigns, like right now we're working on Bisan campaign, Bring Bisan Home. So whenever any undergraduate students has any sort of discrimination or harassment or anything, we campaign on that. Last year we were campaigning on the against the hikes for the international students and so on. So there's some campaigns where you can plan for them and work in advance for them, and some campaigns it's a reaction campaign. Wherever like any decision is taken, you just go and campaign against it. So it's all about social justice and human rights.
Okay, thank you. So there are 2 seats open, and the floor is open to nominations. Awatif?
I'd like to nominate Ali Shara to the External and Campaigns Committee, and I have his motivation.
All right. Do you have their consent? Oh,
Yeah.
you have the motivation. Okay.
Should I-
sorry. I'll just wait to see if there's any other nominations. Yes, today. Okay. Do we have a second? Julia? All right. Is there anyone else who would like to nominate themselves or someone else? Yes, Rowan?
I nominate Charlotte Jeunesse.
Okay. Do we have her their consent? Perfect. Okay. So we have Charlotte, Ali Shara, and Tabia. Okay. So Awatif, the floor is yours.
So Ali is saying that he would like to propose his candidacy for the External Mobilization Committee. He's saying, I have had experience in the full semester with the CSU as the hired campaigner for the Stop Tuition Hikes on International Students campaign. As a former employee of the campaigns department of the CSU, I am sure that I would have the experience to sit on the External and Mobilization Committee and ensure it moves forward and commit to the position book, standing regulations, and bylaws of the CSU.
Thank you very much. Tabia, why would you like to sit on external?
So first of all, I'm still part of Divest, which was the CSU campaign of last year. So I really know how involved the CSU was and like how much it helped. And secondly, I also took the organizing sustainability workshop last semester, which was all around like building up and like gaining hype for a campaign.
Thank you. And
Sure.
for Charlotte.
I can just read what they sent me. I'm on the board of directors for the Hive Solidarity Co-op, which means that I, along with the other board members, are accountable to the membership, and I'm therefore responsible for doing my part to ensure that all actions that we take as an organization are in accordance with our mandate, that we always uphold our values. I'm on the Hive Marketing Committee, and frequently we are asked to partner with external groups and organizations for various events and projects, for example, Beyond Disciplines with the NDG Art Hive and an upcoming documentary with Common Good Solutions in Halifax. We are again responsible for ensuring that these partnerships and relationships are in accordance with our mandate and values. I believe I'm a good person to sit on the External Campaigns Committee because I know the importance of upholding a position that is accompanied by a set of values. I'm excited about fostering relationships with organizations outside of the university and also would welcome the opportunity to assist the planning of future campaigns.
Great, thank you. So at this point we have 3 candidates for 2 positions. Is there any discussion to be had before we move to vote by roll call? By secret ballot, sorry. Okay. Pardon? Okay, so if not, we'll pass out the papers. You want to deal with papers?
Do you write 2 on each paper?
Oh yeah, sorry. So since there's 2 names, you can either write 2 people. It's Ali Shara, Charlotte Genest, or Tabia Vischer. And sorry if I said your name wrong. And you can either write 1 name or abstain, or you could write 2 of the 3. Or you could write both abstain.
Could you repeat just the first names?
Yep. Ali, Tabia, or Charlotte.
Thank you.
And they were motivated for in that order.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. I don't know. Is it wings? Do you want a chair?
Oh, yeah, that would help.
Oh. Yeah. I've been trying to get on contact with you for the last time.
Thank you.
Are you cold?
No, I'm okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I will. Okay.
So, yeah, sorry.
Thank you. Oh, I think so. Yeah. Please. Are you okay? Do you need water? Yeah, I need water.
I'll just do some.
Sorry.
So I'd like to congratulate Ali Shara and Tabia Vischer for your appointment to the External and Campaigns Committee. Is there anything else to be discussed before we move to Loyola? All right, Gabby, the floor is yours.
So this year at Loyola, we're going to be working on some of the projects that I mentioned when we were discussing the finance presentation. And also 2 major goals that I have are to gain control of the G Lounge So that's something that is a passion project of mine because I've been a student at Loyola for 4 years and I would like to see that done before my mandate ends. Hopefully with all of your help we'll be able to get that done. I would also like to revive the Loyola Greenhouse Initiative if the moratorium on building is lifted at Loyola, which I'm in the process of finding out. So those are some things that we're going to be working on, but mostly my job is to enhance student spirit at Loyola and make it a more attractive place for students to come, both from Loyola and from downtown. So yeah, that's what I'm going to be working on.
Thank you. So we have 3 seats open. Would anyone like to nominate either themselves or someone else for the Loyola committee? Okay, if not, if there's no nominations, it'll come back next meeting. Yes, Peter?
I'll nominate myself.
Okay, do we have a second? Camille? Alright, is there anyone else who would like to nominate themselves or someone else? Rowan?
Question, how often will Loyola committee be meeting?
Is there a response?
Sorry? Okay. I nominate myself for Loyola committee.
Okay, do we have a second Awatif? So we have Rowan and Peter and still one. Like I said, if we don't fill it, it'll come back next meeting. Okay, so at this point I'll open the floor to motivations. Peter, why would you like to sit on the Loyola committee?
It's just that I've been to Loyola before and I know how exactly like Loyola campus is, so I would love to do stuff that for the campus that will be able to benefit for the campus staff. Yeah.
Right, thank you. Rowan?
Yeah, I'm already on too many committees, but since it's once a month, like I can do that. And knowing that Charlotte probably won't be coming back till the end of the summer and that there'll need to be 2 counselors for essentially anything to be approved at Loyola committee, assuming we're not going to have special council meetings and drag everyone here just to approve things for Loyola committee, I figure I may as well do it and allow things to progress.
Great, thank you. Yes, Sally? There's 3 open and we have 2 nominees. Okay, so if there is no further discussion, we can either vote by omnibus or one by one. Yes, Gabby?
Wasn't someone else appointed to that at the last meeting?
Yeah, there's 4 seats open, so there was 1 appointee last meeting.
Charlotte, right?
Yeah, I believe so. Although,
It is, but she's in Newfoundland.
Rory?
I move to approve by omnibus.
Okay, do we have a second? Camille. Alright, so I presume there's no discussion. All those in favor of appointing Peter and Rowan to the Loyola committee, please raise your placards. 9, all those opposed, and any abstentions? 1, perfect. Congratulations, you're appointed to the Loyola committee and it will come back next meeting. At this point, is there any more discussion before we move on to CAF? Okay, who is dealing with the Community Action Fund point? Ahmed.
So the Community Action Fund is a new committee and it's mandated to grant funding to initiatives or organization aligned with the CCU position book. And it's new, it's going to start this. If I'm not mistaken, it will start in September, whereas in the last council meeting in in May, we approved it to start in June, but we're still working on the committee. I was appointed today, so I don't have much information, but I know grant funding for initiatives and for organization. That's what I have now, and we have 1 seat.
Great, thank you. Julia?
Yeah, I could fill in the blank for Ahmed. I was appointed last year for the year. And yeah, we're meeting during the summer, but it's only once a month so far. And we're still recruiting people from community groups. So for now, we're like 4, I think. on it, and it's really cool because you get to work with a lot of community organizations. So I recommend anyone who's going into like public policy, community sector, advocacy to like work there, because you get to have really cool contacts and help a lot of groups that don't have much administration money to do any projects and who are doing a lot of good things in Montreal, but also like with other university groups and a lot of like grassroots projects, which is cool.
Great, thank you. Jeremy?
How often does the committee meet?
On it?
It's again, it's a new committee, so I don't have any answer for you now, but I want to. Okay.
Right. Okay, so if there's no one who would like to appoint themselves, it'll just stay as is. Okay, so if there's no further discussion about the Community Action Fund, we can move on to the Fund Committee, and I believe this is Soule?
The fund committee?
The Silk Cut Fund, sorry.
I'm pretty sure Omar can speak to it more than I can.
Yeah, so the fund committee is created and there's mainly 5 people on it, and it's to ratify council spending from the Silk Fund. The general coordinator is automatically appointed by the standing regulations, so is the general manager. There is a lawyer on it, there's a teacher, and there's a counselor on it, which last year was Mahim Maxim. That being said, right now we don't have any counselor, and that's the only seat that needs to be filled. We don't budget or decide how the Silk will be spent. It's just to make sure that the spending that the council has decided on does fall within the mandate of the Silk Fund.
Great, thank you. So there's one seat for a counselor open on the Silk Fund.
Question, how often does your committee meet?
So it's mainly to ratify the spending of council, and also if there is any investments being done, which for example were last year. So for this year, I think it would be at most once a month. So.
And what kind of job do we have to do on this?
So the Silk Fund has some guidelines which you have to follow when you're spending money from it. So to make sure that it's like for student space and so on, or accessible education. So anything that the council spends, they have to make sure that it does abide by that.
So there's one seat open. If it doesn't get filled, it'll come back next meeting. Okay. Yes, Rowan?
Could I nominate Ali Shara?
Yes? Do you have their consent?
Yeah.
Okay. So at this point, we have one nominee. Okay, do you want to motivate, or do they want to motivate?
I just asked them now, because I kind of guessed that no one was going to be motivated for them, but knowing Ali, having worked with him on different things, I think he's a very trustworthy person, and he's good to listen, which is important for this committee, because he'll be sitting with people like lawyers and accountants and our general manager, and like, let's be honest, I don't think many of us in the room can actually outsmart these people when it comes to this kind of thing. I mean, maybe some people, but I know I certainly wouldn't be able to, so I think being able to listen and kind of work with those people is very important, and I think Ali would do a great job doing that.
All right, thank you. Is there any more discussion to be had? Yes, Julia?
I move to appoint Ali to the committee.
Okay, do we have a second? Camille? All those in favor of appointing Ali to the Silk Fund Committee, please raise your placards. 9, all those opposed? 1, and any abstentions? 1. Perfect, so Ali is on the Fund Committee. Great, so if there's nothing else to be added on point F, we can move on to Burritoville Board of Directors, and this is Omar?
Yeah, so the document that everyone received about Burritoville, is just to give a summary as mandated by council at last meeting, just to see, you know, how it was created, what happened to Burritoville now. So if you go through, you just see how it was founded, you know, the financial situation, what they went through, and why they no longer are in business. And so just at the end of it, I think what's important is the recommendation that we're still, you know, looking further into it, the ramifications or the responsibility that the director would personally be assuming. So that being said, from what I've received from our lawyer right now is that, again, we don't have any legal obligation to Burritoville and so on, but if we were to appoint a member, they don't have any insurance, and our insurance wouldn't cover them, so that's something that we have to keep in mind. At the same time, if they have any debts, depending on the nature of the debts, if they're wages or not, the director may or may not be personally held responsible. So.
Thank you. Rory?
So, just to maybe give my opinion on an interpretation of what Omar just said, you do not want to be on this board. You could be held personally liable, and knowing from the Quebec Civil Code, you are held personally liable for employees' wages and for certain things if they're not paid. I don't see any benefit in anyone being on this board. I don't mean to discourage anyone if you want to and you want to make something happen. But again, he said our insurance won't cover you if you're on this board. Please keep that in mind.
Okay, so Dylan and then Julia?
I just wanted to kind of echo those sentiments that it is quite dangerous to go on this board if you could be held personally liable for its actions. This might be a seat that just stays empty and we do not fill it for the foreseeable future.
Thank you very much, Julia.
Can we move to like not have a seat there anymore? Because I think it's confusing and useless.
You can move to refuse to appoint somebody.
Okay.
Because it's Burritoville's bylaws that have us as a seat, so you can't change their bylaws.
So I move to table this to June 2018.
Okay. Do we have a second? Rowan, do you have motivation?
We're not going to fill it. It sucks to have it on the agenda every time.
Okay, it's on a standing committee, so it doesn't have to come back every time. It was asked of me to put it on the agenda.
Okay, well maybe next year someone could reconsider.
Okay. All right, so all those in favor, or does anyone have any discussion to table this till next year?
Can I amend this to May, Council-elect?
Okay. Do we have a second for the amendment, Rory? Is there any opposition to amending this to the May Council-elect meeting? Okay, so it can be considered friendly. Did you have an opposition?
Yeah, well, I just wanted to suggest maybe that we should take a decision for or against instead of tabling it. So maybe if we decide to actually not appoint someone instead of just tabling it, which indirectly is what we're doing, but it would be better if we're more clear in terms of what we want to do.
Just to clarify this, yes, you can move not to appoint, to choose to not appoint anybody ever. It's just you cannot move to remove yourself from their board because that's their bylaws. Yes, Julia?
I move to not appoint anyone ever again.
We have to strike down the first motion because it's already on the table. Sorry.
It's an amendment. Robert's rules allow it.
You can amend it. You can amend to table it indefinitely, and just instead of you can amend to remove the deadline, and it's the same.
I table indefinitely.
Okay. Do we have a second? Kemi? Okay, is there any discussion of tabling this indefinitely? Okay, so all those in favor, please raise your placards. 5. All those opposed? 1 and 2, and any abstentions? 3, 4, 5. All right, so this is tabled indefinitely, and that's it. Rory?
I did quickly just want to thank Omar for putting together the report. It was something that we'd asked him to do at last council, and it was just nice to see that there was like a nice concise report on what had happened, because it was something that was maybe concerning for board members and we needed to know. So thank you for that.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Recognition is always nice. And with that, we can move on to 6H, which is Senate. And Julia, you put this on the agenda?
Yeah, so there were a few people who last time wanted to be on it, namely Dylan, Ali, Rory. So, and we said we would talk about it today, but it wasn't on the agenda, so I think we should talk about it and first see if those 3 people are still interested, and then see if other people want to be on it, and appoint them.
Okay. Rory? Rowan, sorry.
I think it was meant more so to have like an open, I think it was meant that if more people, since we're expecting there to be more people at this council meeting, which there is, so that like more people would have a chance to nominate themselves and speak for themselves.
Bit of information.
Yep.
Is Senate gonna meet this summer?
No. Do we have a direct response?
No, we meet in September.
Okay.
Well,
Sue? Okay. So is there anything to be discussed about Senate appointments? Yes, Julia?
I move to nominate Rory.
Okay. Do we have a second? Or sorry, Rory, do you consent? Right there.
I do consent. Do you want me to
Okay.
do my spiel again?
After, we'll just see if there's any other.
I have a question. What?
Yep.
How many are we supposed to have? Like how many seats? Like I'm not sure exactly for Senate.
Everyone's holding up 2, so I guess that's, yeah, and last council we appointed Julia for an arts and science specific seat and Michaela for a fine arts specific seat. Okay, I see there's a bunch of placards, so we'll go this way. Julia?
I move to nominate Dylan. To Senate.
Do you consent? Okay. Awatid?
I move to nominate Ali Shara for Senate.
Do they consent?
Yeah, and I have his motivation.
Okay. Is there any more, are there any more nominations for Senate? Okay, so at this point, I'll open the floor to motivations. Rory?
Again, so as I said last council, I have a lot of academic experience, previous university experience, job experience. I've worked with faculty members, I've worked with administrators at the university, advocating for academic justice, academic fairness in terms of the academic code, as well as, and again, this is maybe sort of full disclosure as to what my agenda would be on the Senate, but I'd really like to advocate for rights for students with disabilities and with mental health. I know that there are some sort of weaknesses with Concordia's academic policies right now when it comes to their accommodation policy and health services and examinations office, how they work with mental health issues and students with disabilities in that sense. So that's sort of what I'm passionate about in terms of advocating on Senate, because it is an academic board of the university, and bringing my experience working with faculty council and professors and administrative members in the university across that sort of board. So I have the experience doing curriculum changes, working on these other committees, and that's sort of where I want to go with sitting on this if I were to be chosen.
Thank you very much. Dylan?
For my involvement in the past, I've also had the opportunity to work with faculty members. I've also developed those relationships with some of the members on the board, and we'll be developing through this upcoming year through Grant Key. I just want it to be leveraged to help our students. Once again, just voicing the opinion of our students at large, making sure that their academic needs are being met. I see that our curriculums can be updated, and our curriculums aren't necessarily in line with industry standards, especially when it comes to John Wilson, but across the board, internship opportunities and so forth. So really looking forward to working on those initiatives that come up and being able to help our students get their voices heard. And I think the close relationship that I've developed with faculty and will continue to develop will actually be a key and an asset in this case to help get our voices across in a more effective and efficient manner. Furthermore, I've been faced competition debate, so speaking skills are quite high and will allow me to communicate effectively with staff who don't normally communicate in the same way as our students do.
Thank you very much. Awatid for Ali?
Sorry. I would like to propose my candidacy for Senate. I was a student senator the previous year and have the knowledge to add more and interest in input in any decisions made at Senate meetings. I don't mind making myself heard or shy away from calling out members of the university, including the administration. As an international student, if nominated, I will be a voice for international students, which is an important asset to have combating future tuition hikes proposals on international students. I am sad not to attend the first meeting, but I am excited to work with all of you at the start of the fall semester.
Thank you very much. So I have a speakers list of Rowan and Julia.
Yeah, I would like to personally motivate for Ali, knowing him and having worked with him before. But first off, he does have the experience. He's actually sat on Senate for not all of this last year, but for some of this last year. And I've watched Senate meetings that he partook in, and he knows what he's doing. Second of all, he is an international student, saving one senator who I don't know personally, so I don't want to say. There is either one or no international students on Senate right now. Considering that something that was actually brought up was tuition hikes against international students last year. That's something that could very well be brought up again. Probably will be. I think having an actual international student there would be nice. And having worked with him before and having worked with him dealing with the administration and seeing him in an official capacity and in an unofficial capacity when we were essentially disrupting a meeting, I've seen him be able to play, like, for lack of a better word, good cop, bad cop with the administration, like seen him talk friendly with them and seen him like talk down to them when they're blatantly going against student interests, and I fully believe in his ability to do both and use those on behalf of the students.
Thank you very much. Julia?
This is going to be like off topic. Can we suspend Robert's rules for a second, please, to add to the agenda?
Can we do it up to this point?
Yeah, can we just finish the point? Sure. Can we get it out of the way? Thank you. Okay, is there anything else to be discussed before we move to a vote? Since there are 3 nominees, we'll move by secret ballot again. Okay, papers, please. So once again, you can either do 2 names, 1 name, 1 abstain, or 2 abstains, and your candidates are Ali, Dylan, and Rory. Yes, Ron.
Can I just remind council about faculty representation? Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, we're voting, so we should have done that before. So I'll call on you after. Yeah? 2.
I'm so sorry.
Thank you. Yeah,
It should just be automatic.
Yeah.
Pen.
Can I see it? It's like Rory Gilmore.
Thank you.
I thought Rory from Gilmore Girls was colored high.
Okay, everyone, we're voting. Could we try to have some semblance of decorum?
It's my favorite.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. I think you would just like to go with the candidates.
Oh, yeah, sure. Once again, the candidates are Ali, Rory, and Dylan. Rory and Dylan being right there.
Full appointments to ratify? Okay, then I won't do it now. Because usually, I looked at old documents from last year, we ratified the position in appointments. But it doesn't matter, right? Okay. Okay. So we'll just do it later.
Wait till
I have dinner with people. I spent like so many years never watching the end of it because I didn't want to know how it ended.
Is everyone?
I never watched any
No. Okay.
It was on my generation, I feel. I think it was 2. I'm 23.
Thank you.
Veronica, I'm gonna do it now because that's not really well. Okay. Okay. Yeah, just wait for 1 more point, okay? Or like 2 more and then I'll do it fast.
All right, everyone. So after tallying the votes, Ali and Rory are your appointees to the Senate. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anything else? Yeah, Julia?
I would like to move to break Robert's rules.
Is it something we can cover in new business and arising?
Well, Louise isn't feeling well, so we should do it now, and then she
Okay.
can go home.
Not a problem. Okay, do we have a second? Rory? So all those in favor of suspending Robert's rules, please raise your placards. 10. All those opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, yes, Julia?
I move to move appointments tabling to now and just change the name and call it alternate governor.
There's nothing.
Sorry? Veronica pulled appointments committee.
Oh,
So
appointments committee. Okay.
instead of taking that, like remove the name from down there and put it now and call it alternate governor.
Okay.
Thank you.
2 appointments. Okay, so I'll put it as J.
Thank you.
Not a problem. All right, so that means no more appointments minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Perfect.
And I need to re-enter Robert's rules.
We just have to approve. All those in favor of approving the amendments to the agenda? Pardon?
But we're outside of our control.
Yeah.
We still usually vote out of courtesy. But, okay, point taken. We'll just vote to reinstate.
Does anyone object to it?
Yeah.
Yes, because I wasn't here at the beginning to modify the minutes that were approved from the prior meeting.
They've already been approved,
You
sorry.
can modify them outside of it. It happened last one, they modified them from 2 weeks ago.
What's the modification?
The modification was a quote from myself. It stated in the thing, it was, I'll read out what exactly the intent was so that it can be modified correctly. I wrote it down. It was a statement that I was made that was noted at the top of it. There's also incorrect that I'm put under the Faculty of Science as well. So is Rory as well, so that's just procedural. But give me 1 second, I wrote it. It was a logical statement that I wrote, and the logic was that since council has done something in the past does not mean that it should do it in the future. It's not justification, it's a fallacy. It's been misquoted.
Okay.
Just in the,
What's the correction of the quote?
that is the correction, that like you cannot justify, the argument that because something was done in the past, it should be done in the future continuously is a fallacy and shouldn't be used as a justifiable argument.
Okay, I will pass that along to the old minute taker because unfortunately they're not the minute taker right now. But in the future, if we could save these for before the meeting, that would be great. Okay, so all those in favor of reinstating Robert's rules, please raise your placards. 12, all those opposed. 1, all those abstaining. 1, perfect. Okay, so at this point we are on, if there's nothing else to be discussed under Senate, we're on BIPOC, which is I. Rory?
Would we be able to interrupt and just make sure that Louise gets a ride home?
Yeah, absolutely.
If she's not feeling well, then we can, whatever business needs to be discussed for her so that she can go and then make sure that she gets a
Yeah,
cab.
also I was also wanting to send in a request for leave earlier too, so I don't know.
Okay,
Is that possible? So-
okay, there's a couple things going on at once. So is there anything that you need to be here for, Louise?
I don't know.
Yeah, that's why I'm,
We're
Julia?
just looking at the agenda.
Yeah, we were looking at the agenda, anything like contentious. So like alternate right to die and then that's it. So we could have done it right away and then sent Louise home. Maybe if someone could go with her so she's not by herself.
Yeah, that would help.
Yeah. Layla? Okay, so if we could just do that now.
okay. So I have alternate governor, right to die, and BIPOC. But for BIPOC, we're not appointing anyone. So does anyone want to cover the point quick? Yes, Devin?
Yeah, okay, so with BIPOC, we haven't had a meeting yet. We've had one counselor who's sitting on the board right now, or committee rather, it's Peter. So there's room for one more counselor and then a student at large. Sorry, I'm just getting a little tired. And I'm chairing it right now, but Asma is also sitting on it, and we're working together and coming up with how we're going to shape BIPOC this year and what we would like the outline framework to look like. So just send me an email address, and then there will be a new BIPOC email that I'm creating with the new IT person. So I will resend the email from that.
Perfect. Thank you. There's no more discussion on BIPOC committee. We can move on to 8J, which is alternate governor. Julia?
Yeah, appointments committee, we recommended Robert Young to be appointed, so it would just be ratification.
Okay, do we call it a motion to ratify? Do we have a second? Kemi, Julia, your motivation?
We did a thorough process and we had like 9 questions that we asked everyone and we timed everyone and we had criteria at the beginning and Robert was the one that fit the mold.
All right. So the motion on the table is to ratify the appointments committee minutes with the motion to have Robert as alternate governor within them. Is there any more discussion to be had? Perfect, so we can move on to a vote. So all those in favor, please raise your placards. 8, all those opposed, and any abstentions? 3, 4, 5, perfect. All right, so if there's nothing further on appointments, we can move on to 8A, which is right to die, and Julie, the floor is yours.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Peter wanted to motion to excuse himself. Yeah.
Is that possible that I can send a request for the leave for the company? I just want to be sure.
Yeah, Julie?
Well, I mean, I can direct respond. It's probably gonna end in before the next 90 minutes, so you could leave.
If it doesn't, because I'm covering people who requested excusal in business arising, so if it's past 90 minutes, I'll add your name to it. Is that okay?
Sure.
Perfect. So we are at 8A, right to die. Layla or Julia?
First one, just for information, but technically after midnight, any absence doesn't count as an absence, which we don't always warrant, but just so that people even know, after midnight, that doesn't, we don't need to request it.
Thank you. Julia?
Yeah, so for the motion, basically this is stuff that I wrote last year that was just resent because if you pull up the motions document, the first be it resolved was already passed. So we have a position, a pro-choice position toward the question of the right to die in our positions book. And so I just wanted to finish up some business from last year. I hope everyone read everything. I'm just going to read the two be it resolved. So be it resolved that the CSU be mandated to ensure that Concordia students with incurable illnesses or dealing with immediate family in this situation are able to seek additional psychological assistance at the university, be provided with academic amnesty or clemency in difficult periods, or if the need to attend frequent doctor's appointments arises, and for Concordia to take all accessibility concerns in regards to infrastructure more seriously and take concrete actions. Be it further resolved that the CSU be mandated to pressure well, I had edited that last year, but the CSU be mandated to support groups that are pressuring and lobbying the federal government to review and amend Bill C-14, which limits the scope of assisted dying in Canada